All right, this time we're going to resume the meeting of October 2nd, 2017. Councilmember Friend, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gilliam?
Here.
Vice Mayor Clower?
Here.
Mayor Velasquez?
Here.
Councilmember Friend?
Present.
Councilmember Luna?
Present.
City Manager Avra?
Present.
City Attorney Diaz?
Present.
Chief of Police Westrick?
Here.
Verification of agenda posting.
The agenda for the City of Hollister City Council meeting of October 2nd, 2017 was posted on the bulletin board on September 28th, 2017 at 9:21 a.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Okay. City Attorney, do you want to report out from closed session?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There were 3 items on closed session. No action was taken on any of the 3 items. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Tonight we have a proclamation for Freedom from Workplace Bullies Week. Linda George, I saw you earlier. I know you're there. Whereas the City of Hollister has an interest in promoting the social and economic well-being of its citizens, employees, and employers, and now, therefore, I, Ignacio Velasquez, Mayor of the City of Hollister, hereby proclaim October 15th through the 21st, 2017 as Freedom from Workplace Bullies Week. Thank you for coming out. And please say a few words.
Hi. I don't know if okay. I usually sing in these things, not talk.
You know, sing.
I could not have picked a better day. It's employer recognition, and that's awesome. I was looking at the agenda. I've actually had an 8-year battle. I've worked for the state for 30 years, and I was a licensed psych tech for 14 years at a state hospital, worked for Caltrans for a couple of years, and then I finished my job doing SSI, SSDI adjudication for 14. In my last job, we did a petition for a very aggressive boss that was harmful to the staff, and it turned into a list of people to go after. In the midst and in the apex of that situation, I was testifying for counties, city, any kind of employees that had a 3-year rule of termination. So a state, you could go back 3 years. With the CHP, they only get 1. Fire, 1. So I testified. I testified with the head of the Union of the Physicians, Dr. Stuart Bussey. I explained to the Senate what happened in my case. Right when I was completed, Senator Harkey said, this just happened to my sister. And how come those bosses were not fired? My sister's had a nervous breakdown. We're having to sell her house. We're having to take her animals in. We have to find her somewhere. Why weren't these people fired? Well, I'm gone. I retired and resigned and picked a healthier life because I realized a paycheck wasn't worth all that. We appreciate you doing the proclamation more than you know, because what there is the Workplace Bullying Institute is trying to get a healthy legislation bill in, which means that it would be illegal, like in Europe, in different countries, to harass or pick on your employees. And this proclamation right here will go within the next 24 hours on the website. And every year we look forward to hopefully one day all the cities and the counties coming together and knowing that that's not a way to treat an employee. So I appreciate it more than you know. You're probably thinking, why is this vocal person on Neighborhood Watch saying all this stuff? I'm vocal, but I have a big heart that goes with it. I appreciate your time today, and thank you so much. I'll make sure this gets in 24 hours.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Now we're going to move forward to the Employee Service Awards for the third quarter. Chief Del Campo? Or Charlie's going to be presenting, Mark?
Mark Aguirre isn't here, but he's been an employee here for quite a number of years, 20 years of service. I'm hoping he's watching this right now. He's on duty right now, and they're running calls. You know, he's carrying on a family tradition of in the fire service, you know, making his dad proud, Chief Aguirre. So hope he just keeps up the good work, and hopefully another 10 more at least. Thank you.
Tell Mark thank you.
I will. Thank you.
Good evening. I want to recognize both Officer Wells and Lieutenant Wynn. I'll be taking their pins for them. They actually both are working. As you know, a couple of weeks ago, we actually had one of our officers was hurt on duty, and they're both actually sort of covering for that person right now. So they'll be busy with that. We thank you a lot. We'll make sure they get these pins tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Okay, we're going to move forward to the consent agenda. Are there any items council would like to pull?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull A4.
A4? Are there any from the audience?
A8, please.
A8?
Yes.
I will have to recluse myself from A7 and A8 because I live next door to the property.
Okay. Are there any from the public?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, is there a motion?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item A4.
Good evening. This item is for the City Council to consider the rejection of all bid proposals that were submitted to the City Clerk for the Park Hill tank.
Is your microphone working?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
it is. Okay. It was due to a slight oversight in the bid process that we have to start the bidding process over. And with that irregularity, we're presenting this to the council for consideration to reject all bids and authorize the recalling of new bids for the project.
What caught my eye was the rejecting of the bids, and that's why I wondered, rejecting all the bids and then calling out for new bids?
Yes, all of them have to go.
All of them?
Yes, and start the process over.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Is there
A4.
Second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item A8. A8.
Good evening.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate you coming back up again.
Oh, thank you.
I have a couple of questions on this one, if you don't mind. I wanted to talk about the fiscal impact. I see it in the description, actually, but I believe it's converting a position from one step or a regular position to a supervisor. So I don't believe it's going to be a fully burdened $120,000, right? That's the actual cost of the full position?
Exactly. So actually, from the numbers, so the top step of the code enforcement for the remainder of the pay period and the remainder of the code enforcement for the first step, the difference is actually $1,500 and $92. So that's for the remainder for the year. And not in actuality, so the top step for the code enforcement officer position is, and the top step for the code enforcement supervisor position, the new proposed one, the only difference is $15,000 between the two. So for the whole year, the difference is $15,000 more for the full year. But right now, there's only going to be a $1,500 difference because there's 5 steps.
Okay.
That's going to go. So from top step code enforcement to the entry level of the code enforcement supervisor, then they have 5 more steps to go. So it'll take a while before we get up to the $1,500 difference.
So you'll bring this person in at the bottom step and they'll work their way up.
That's,
Can you talk about the reason why this isn't an open recruitment? Is this because you're converting a position and there's not a new position being added to the city's budget?
well, with this, I came in here in January, and I got tasked with taking over the code enforcement. So with that, I've got to go through all the challenges with that. So I needed to create an informal position, which I've done for the last 3 months, so we're getting some consistent and efficient. There's a lot of deadlines that are having to be met. The code enforcement is the go-to for all non-emergency incidents, like the fire department's incident, so they call it code enforcement. We've taken on a lot more duties as it is, so we found a need that there was, without having a direct supervisor there was a lot of major deadlines that were getting missed. I mean, right now, they have 30 open cases right now. So I can't be following 30 open cases myself. I have to have someone there. So right now, since we've appointed that, I have someone overseeing the open cases that are happening right now and following through on the citations, because we do PD citations, animal control citations, the city citations, as well as all the public nuisance citations. So they're doing all the paperwork for that, to follow through with that and taking them to court. And our court dates, like I said, we're booked every Thursday for the rest of the year. So that person's keeping control of that, and I'm managing that part right there. So it's an important person to have. I mean, it's kind of hard to have everyone of equal ranks, because each one were individually, it was like a freelancing department. This one would come talk to me, this one would come talk to me. Now that we have the rank and control, we've got a tighter range. So actually, when this is all said and done, if it does get approved, we'll be able to take code enforcement with our SOPs and all our procedures, and it'll be able to go anywhere, and it'll be able to run efficiently. So anyone should be able to run the code enforcement after we're all done with it.
Can you talk about span of control, what this new supervisor, what they're going to be supervising, what their duties are going to be, how their day is going to,
So the code
supervisory
enforcement
day is going to take place?
Sure. The code enforcement supervisor, the optimum of ICS is 3 to 7. So right now, it's the code enforcement officer, and there's another code enforcement officer, and then we have an office admin. Ideally, like I said, we're looking at 3 code enforcement officers to admin, so that's 4 people. They're basically, we're running it after the PD model of the animal control. So we have the code enforcement that reports to me, which I directly report to the fire chief. And that's the same thing with animal control. They report to the police lieutenant that reports to the police chief. That makes sense. I mean, we're just able to keep a lot tighter and not lose important dates. I mean, before we were losing a lot of important dates, and for the legality reasons, we need to make sure that we're hitting those dates. Otherwise, we lose a case and we have to start from scratch. So if we have a major place that we have to clean up and you miss that deadline, and we have to start from scratch and start over. So it's preventing us, and that's even from the fines. We dropped the fines down. We kept giving it additional fines and everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do we have any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a motion?
So move.
Is there a second? Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank you,
move
Chief.
on to public input. This is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda. Sorry?
Mr. Mayor, we have quite a few students here, and I believe that we have a resolution on DACA. And I was just wondering if it's possible to move it up before the public input. I think it's at the very end of the meeting.
Right. I'd like to keep the agenda as it is tonight, but there's a lot of items for a lot of people here that.
And I know the students can probably be here only an hour. So within an hour, I don't think we're going to complete this agenda.
Well, we'll try to
So
move it through.
that-
I would like to move it too. I think
You'd
we
like
should
to
get
move it?
out of the way.
Is there?
Sure.
Okay. There's been a request to move item.
F4.
Which one?
F5.
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 F5. Why don't we move that right after the public comment?
Sure.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. We'll do this again. This is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within subject matter jurisdiction of the council. When the city clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the city council. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes per subject. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. Do we have speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Wendell Bonner. Sean Donahue.
Hi. Thanks, everybody. I'll try to be brief. I have a bit of a head cold, actually. Thanks for all of your work thus far. It's exciting to see the cannabis implementation going forward. I was just going to briefly report on what's been happening up at the state capitol. The legislative session is concluded. The governor has signed what he's going to sign, and the rules have shifted fairly substantially. There were 2 trailer bills, SB 94, which and one aspect that's very important probably for updating Hollister's ordinance is the deleting of the transporter license and the consolidation of those activities into the distributor function, which has been doubled down upon. And then also Assembly Bill 133, which was the second trailer bill that was passed and signed by the governor and put into law. What you're really seeing is a lot of the regulatory things are still advancing forward. The licensing authorities have officially rescinded the medical draft regulations from earlier in May, which were made obsolete by SB 94. And what you're seeing is they're going to be issuing emergency regulations in November, which will go into effect immediately. So that's going to be a very confusing time for a lot of operators, but obviously we look to be as compliant as possible. Some of the other things that have been done is obviously the whole nature of the state statutory framework has changed its name, and they've merged it together. They deleted the medical framework and merged it into the adult use framework in effect. And so I would compel the city to maybe perhaps reopen that box and to look at some minor tweaks and minor amendments that need be done for the local ordinance. And that's about it. Oh, and the state's hiring like 600 people, 3 more gubernatorial appointees, and they're committing to heavily invest in assisting localities in regulating commercial cannabis activities, either medical or adult use. Thanks.
Thank you.
Marty Richmond.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Marty Richmond from Hollister. I'd like to speak about public safety in reference to the terrible tragedy in Las Vegas this weekend. Humans are unpredictable. I spent more than 20 years in something called the Personnel Reliability Program because of the job I had in the service. They check my medical records. You get to talk to a psychiatrist to see if you're on the right side. People watch you all the time to see how you behave. And yet, with all these safeguards, we had occasions where people went off the deep end and ended up in tragedies. Humans are unpredictable. I say it again. That's why your local police officer who approaches your car sometimes doesn't treat you the way you think you should be treated. And the reason is he's as afraid of you as you are of him or her. Because there's nothing more stressful than meeting someone on the street that you don't know who it is that you think you might have a problem with. They say the most dangerous thing for a police officer is to answer the call for domestic violence. 2 people you don't know are at it. Humans are unpredictable. So I want people to keep that in mind when they're dealing with our public safety people. Don't give them cause to believe that they are being threatened because they have no way of knowing whether you just came out of the moving pictures and enjoying yourself or whether you just left the house in a huff because you're angry with your significant other and you have a gun in your pocket. And the first thing you want to do is take it out on somebody in a uniform. So I think the public often forgets that it's a two-way street. But, you know, they're there when we need them. We also had a big fire here within the last few days, and people go in there to try and save your home or your neighbor's home, and there's nothing in it for them. We don't pay bonuses for people who go in and run toward the fire instead of away from it. The reason we put so much of our budget into public safety is because that's what the public wants. Most of all, they want to be safe and secure in their hometown. They want to know they can go out and safely have their families recreate and shop and do all those things that they want to do. So we have a terrible tragedy in Las Vegas, and you never can tell when something like that is going to happen locally. So be careful, be respectful of the public safety people, because they have a job to try and predict what you're going to do, and that's pretty impossible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
There are no more speakers, Mr.
No
Mayor.
more speaker cards? Thank you. Going to move to item F5.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the meeting on September 18th, Councilmember Luna asked us to put this particular item on the agenda to show support of the DACA program and the designation of having Hollister become a Dreamer City. So I don't know if Ms. Councilman Luna wants to make further comments on this. I will defer to her at this point.
Thank you. Yes, I would. You know, the immigration issue throughout the United States and locally within the city of Hollister County, San Benito, is no fault of children that were brought here when they were very small, very young. And today, looking at the population within the city of Hollister, it's pretty close to over 60% Latino. And it's not just Latinos. The immigrant community of children are not just Latinos, and we want to make sure that people understand that. When the president called for the deferred action for childhood arrivals, it actually means any child that came into the United States at a very young age with no fault of themselves. It was through their parents coming in to the United States. And as we all know, people come because they know that America is welcoming and actually changes the lives of so many people. Looking in San Benito County, you can see the diversity, and I applaud diversity. And so I asked that this be on the agenda because, after all, I believe the city of Hollister is the last city within the region and the counties to actually adopt just such a resolution that is only supporting of all the children that are in Hollister, in the city of Hollister, are attending our schools. Many who serve in the armed forces. What will we do today in the report that just came out? That all these DACA students that are actually right now in the armed forces, should something happen that they would have to return to their origin country, that would really impact the armed forces of the United States. So with that, I just want to make sure that we all understand the importance of the city of Hollister and the city council saying to our immigrant community and immigrant children that are doing wonderful in these schools, that are going on to college, to the universities, to say, you're welcome in the city of Hollister. We're here. We're here to support you. We're here to support your families, because after all, you know, we know the children that are of our immigrant community are going to be somebody someday that are going to return to our community to do something. I can't help but say that Victor Gomez is a fine example of being born in Guadalajara and coming to the United States, and his service not only to the city council in past years, but to the whole community as in the business sector of the community is a plus for the city of Hollister. And there's so many others. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I am supportive of this resolution, and I'm really hoping that the city of Hollister council members would also endorse the support for all the children, the immigrant children of San Benito County and the city of Hollister and in our schools.
Thank you very much. Is there any comments or questions from the council? No? Do you have any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt ordinance resolution 2017-23.
Second.
251.
Pardon? Is that the right number?
251.
251, I'm sorry. 51, yeah.
There's a motion, there's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Go back to item E1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the City Council, good evening. The item, the Silver Oak Senior Community Project, is designed to provide housing for seniors in the community. The approved development proposal consists of a conditional use permit for a planned development permit in conjunction with a tentative map and a site and architectural review to subdivide 24.40 acres into 170 senior single-family residential units with a community center between Valley View Road and Airline Highway. And it's
Hey,
actually...
If I can interrupt you for a
Sure,
second.
sure.
Vice Mayor Clara pointed something out. Is this the project that I believe Chispa, the affordable home developer, is somewhat involved with?
Correct, Mr. Mayor. Yes.
At this point, I'm going to recuse myself. I have a
Sure.
working relationship with Chispa, so
Very
I'm going
well.
to pass the gavel to Vice Mayor
Very
Clara.
well.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Very well. Thank you. The approval was for 170 senior single-family residential homes, again, between Valley View Road, Airline Highway, and north of Hazel Hawkins Community Memorial Hospital. The approval also consisted of 68 or 40% of the residential units were designated as affordable housing units. On February 4th, 2008, the applicant entered into a performance agreement with the City of Hollister. The existing performance agreement would require the developer to either construct those 40% affordable units at the sites, consisting of those 68 units, or pay an in lieu fee. The request before you this evening is to amend the performance agreement with Silver Oaks, essentially to reflect the City Council Resolution number 2017-151. It's attached as Exhibit A in your packet. And that was approved on June 19th, 2017, approximately 3 months ago, by your City Council, directing staff that in lieu of the Silver Oaks developer building the affordable housing on site or paying the in lieu fee originally agreed to, instead accept a minimum payment of $500,000 to the City of Hollister's Affordable Housing Fund from the developer of the Silver Oaks subdivision, and for the developer to contribute a minimum of $500,000 for the tax credit application with the California Tax Allocation Committee for the 49-unit affordable housing senior apartment housing complex on Line Street, proposed by Chispa, which was approved by the Planning Commission on June 22nd, 2017. There was a clause on that resolution back on June that indicated that if for some reason the Chispa was not awarded the tax credit allocations, then those $500,000 would go back to the city for the city to put it in an affordable housing fund. Staff got word from the Chispa basically indicating that they did receive the tax credit allocation last week. With this, staff recommends that the City Council of the City of Hollister approve Resolution number 2017-243, approving the amendment to performance agreement with the Silver Oaks Senior Community Project. Are there any questions for staff?
Councilmember Friend?
When I read this, what you're saying is $500,000 for affordable housing, but it says here, council would agree to accept in lieu of fee of $50,000 per unit, which is $3.4 million.
Councilman Friend, that was the original agreement, the original performance agreement back in 2008. Then it later got amended in 2010, basically providing the option to the developer to either construct the affordable housing on site or provide that $3.4 million. But then, per the resolution approved back in June, the council directed the developer to pay $500,000 to the city for the affordable housing fund, and another $500,000 to Chispa, pending that they receive that tax credit allocation. Chispa received approval for 49 senior housing units back in June. So essentially, it would be for a total of $1 million.
And where is Chispa going to build those affordable houses?
The 49 senior housing, affordable housing, is located on Line Street, between Line Street and West Side Boulevard, between 5th Street and South Street. So in that neighborhood, there is a vacant site that Chispa received approval for in June.
It was also in conjunction with Community Services Development Corporation, CSDC's property, and you probably, when you drive there, you'll see actually the city has also an easement that runs adjacent to that same property.
That's correct. Thank you.
Councilmember Lynn?
How many units are you talking about here on Line Street? Senior?
On Line Street, the senior units, council member Luna, it's 49, and they're going to be apartment units. They're going to be age restricted, and there are 49 units that were approved.
And the parking, would that be the city easement?
It's going to be, the site's going to have parking on site. There's going to be parking on site, yes. And essentially, the access is going to be, vehicle access is going to come from West Side Boulevard, but there will be pedestrian access on Line Street as well.
Okay.
Yes. And that's an actually approved project. It went before the Planning Commission on June 22nd of this year.
Any questions? No, I'll make a motion. Or are we going to do public comment?
Can we open up the public hearing?
Bang the gavel.
The public hearing is open.
Thank you.
We have no speaker cards, Vice Mayor.
Close. Are there any other questions or comments?
I'd like to entertain a motion, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Go ahead.
That we approve resolution number 2017-243 as written.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Build this. Build it. How many years, Marty? 15? Been trying to build that project for 15 years. Maryland started it.
We're going to move on to item E2.
Good evening. Item E2 is a resolution of the City Council that would approve a supplemental budget appropriation and a 5-year capital improvement program and budget to incorporate a list of projects funded by SB 1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act. On August 1st, 2016, the City Council adopted a payment management program and final report prepared by Payment Engineering Incorporated. In this report, the City of Hollister had an established PCI, which is the Pavement Condition Index, of 69, which is a fair condition. It's in the high range of fair. Because in order to keep, it's identified in the report, in order to keep the pavement condition at 69, City of Hollister would need to spend approximately $3.8 million a year. That's an amount that exceeds our current budget. And the city would do the best we can with the money that we have available, and we would also be looking for, exploring alternative funding sources. One such resource is SB 1, Senate Bill 1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act. That act was approved and signed into law by the governor in April 2017. What that means to the city of Hollister is that in the 2017-18 fiscal year, we'd be receiving $206,138, and in order to get that money, we need to have budgeted into our road repair projects, our capital improvement program. We need to budget that amount of money into it. We also need to identify a list of roads. What we'd be doing is, with this item, would be adding the $206,138 to an existing CIP project 1701, which is a road rehabilitation program. With that project, we'd be adding the following street sections to that program, which are, if you allow me, it's San Felipe Road south of the bypass to 3rd Street, San Felipe Road north of the bypass to the city limits, and that particular section would be doing a dig out and patching. The road's actually not in really bad shape, but there are some failing areas that need to be dug out and repaired. All the rest, the first section I read, and the rest of them would be a rehabilitation project, such as an overlay. South Street, San Benito Street to West Street, Monterey Street, South Street to Nash Road, Westside Boulevard, South Street to Nash Road, San Benito Street, Nash Road to the future connector south of San Benito High School. That's the bypass that's going around. West Street, 4th Street to South Street, Hawkins Street, San Benito Street to Monterey Street, Flynn Road, San Felipe Road to State Route 25, and that's proposed to be a joint project with the county. CIP 1701, which is the project we'd be adding this money to and this list of roads to, has an existing CIP budget of $1.7 million. That's to perform heavy maintenance, light rehab, heavy rehab to roads identified in the pavement management program. And again, like I said, the existing PCI is 69, which is rated fair. If we hit 70 or above, it's good. We have a goal of trying to get our roads to the best that we possibly can. The best possible PCI for the city would be 100. We're going to do everything we can to try and get to that with the monies available. Again, looking for other resources. So the new total on that project, if approved, this resolution is approved, would be $1.906 million, $1,906,138. The projects the road sections that I just mentioned would be our first priority projects. They would be done first. Then we'd be going back to our pavement management system to identify roads that would be able to be done with the remainder of the funds and the budgeted funds. So, the pavement management system is a very valuable tool. It's actually something that's required in the SB1, and with that, we'll be able to get our roads, try and get our roads in a much better condition than what they already are. So if you have any questions, what I'm going to ask is that you open a public hearing, hold a public hearing, close it, and then approve the resolution if you wish.
We'll do that. Thank you. Councilmember Luna?
So my question is, how did you determine actually the streets that were going to be worked on? Because there's one street here that stands out for me, and that's West Street. 4th to South Street. I don't know, some people travel through West Street, but when you see from South Street to Nash Road, that's the thorough way where all the high school buses go through. And if you see that street, it's pretty bad if you travel that street.
Right. So in accordance with the resolution, the roads were selected by the PMS program, the Pavement Management System program, and these roads were identified as being the highest priorities, these sections. It's not to say that West Street from south to Nash would not be on a future list. I drove that road today, and yes, it is has a pretty poor ride quality. Looking at we would be looking at what the pavement management system would be providing us as the best bang for our buck and what roads could be done. That road, if it's not selected, may be because it's nearing a complete reconstruction. And so what the program would do would have West Street finish its life at the level that it is, and then jump it into a reconstruction project. And what that's saying is that if we put an overlay on it today, it's not going to last nearly as long as expectations for an overlay would be, because we really need to go back. We would most likely really need to go back into the road and grind it up, redo the base, and start as a reconstruction of that roadway.
So maybe in a second phase, that could be given consideration,
Yes.
priority?
Yes, and we would try and establish a list of roads that we know we need to get done, and hopefully the program would identify those roads.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. When, just so for clarity, when you're saying the overlay, are you talking about a slurry, or are you talking about a grind and then a thicker layer of asphalt?
We're talking about basically what we did on Sierra Vista, an overlay being like 1.5 inch, 2 inch asphalt. Overlay, we grind sides of the road so that we don't have a lip between the road and the curb, which is dangerous for bicycle riders. And we actually have better drainage with that. But it is, but we're talking about an overlay being some additional asphalt on there, and we may do some other additional work, such as putting pavement fabric down, maybe a leveling course. But when everything's all said and done, you have essentially a brand new road out there.
The issue there on Monterey with the concrete underneath, is that, how long do you expect that to last doing this?
Monterey south to Nash, when I drove down that road today and saw that there's a concrete, base to that. It's asphalt over concrete. We would have to go in and most likely do maybe a little bit additional work to it. We want to make sure that any of the cracking on that's right now being reflected up through the surface is addressed, and that's more than likely usually done with pavement fabric that it distributes stresses out amongst the the rest of the pavement. So a pavement fabric, maybe a leveling course, trying to get the we would probably grind down all the little ridges, and with the hope that would last. We're looking at roads like doing an overlay lasting 30 years before we'd have to go do another overlay. But that also includes doing some maintenance, slurry seals or other types of maintenance on that as well during that 30 years.
Okay. Just concerned about that because when we talked about it in the past, I know there's so many different methods now, so I'm hoping we're looking at different ways of doing it. And
yeah, some of the concrete
provide
roads,
a longer lifetime.
I'm sorry. Some of the concrete roads that we talked about are in such bad shape that that type of strategy couldn't and wouldn't work out. Concrete roads are very, very expensive, much more expensive to replace than doing an overlay on a asphalt over concrete road, such as 5th Street. That's a road that really all of the concrete needs to come out, needs to be reconstructed. And when we did that, if we were to do that in future years, it would turn in. We'd remove the concrete and turn it back into an asphalt road.
Vice Mayor Clower?
Do we have a priority for these projects over the next 5 years?
The order of which I stated: San Felipe Road, the two sections of San Felipe Road, South Street. Those are the three top priorities. Monterey Street, Westside Boulevard, it goes down in that order. So these are listed on the staff report as a priority order. As funds are available, we're looking at trying to get these done first before we move into some of the other streets that the PMS may identify.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Do we have any speaker cards? Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to open this up for public hearing. Now, do we have any speaker cards?
No speaker cards, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, this time we're going to close public hearing. Any other questions or comments from council? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you for.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to move to item E3.
Mr. Mayor, I need to recuse myself for items 3, 4, 5, and 6 because of conflict of interest that had to do with the original hearing of the item.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I as well will be recusing myself from those same items.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Mr. Mayor, as I previously announced, I'm an independent contractor. I've never represented any cannabis clients of any kind. However, the law firm that I independently contract with, LNG, has, and to avoid any appearance of bias or any potential conflict, I'm also recusing myself at this time.
Thank you. Anybody else want to leave?
All the students probably want to leave.
We have an option?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. With this item, the applicant, FBT Jordan Incorporated, is appealing the City Council's denial of a cannabis use permit / development agreement, which was to operate a medical cannabis cultivation facility at 817 Industrial Drive, pursuant to Section 5.42270 of the Medical Cannabis Ordinance, number 1131. Staff ensured that the process outlined in the ordinance was complied with according to the appeal procedure. The city clerk transmitted a written statement to the City Council, and on September 5th, the City Council set the appeal date for October 2nd. I've put up an illustration of the facility just to kind of refresh, kind of like what we went over back on August 14th. The applicant is also here to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Velasquez and council members. If it's all right with you, I'm going to consolidate kind of the items in E3, E4, and E5 into one speech.
Yeah, we'll do one at a time.
Okay. Do my
Thank
best. I'm here to appeal to you that I purchased the property on 817 Industrial to commit myself to the city, and now I am a member of your community. My application was reviewed by the city staff at Hollister, who recommended my property, my application, and myself personally as one of the top 2 qualified applicants to implement a dispensary in the city. This included reviewing my detailed security plan, my goals to contribute to the city through hiring locally, continued educational programs for employees, and contributing tax dollars, and everything in between. I intend to honor this commitment made in my application and to be a model citizen to the community. My property, 817 Industrial, is zoned for industrial properties. Across the street is Osaki, a large facility dedicated to producing alcohol, which they are zoned to do. I conducted a survey and examined the ordinance to ensure that my property is 100% zoned for its use and received confirmation from the city that it is. I've heard the citizens of Hollister speak and express their concerns of having a dispensary next to gyms that serve children, and I really understand where they're coming from. However, like the gyms, like the Ozaki Sake factory, my facility can open a business that serves the community in a zone that permits them to do it. I would go as far as to argue that our detailed security would improve the overall security on the street. And I encourage anyone here tonight to take my contact information so we could please have that dialogue. I'd like to add that we're serving very sick patients. My property is the only property with an application that provides easy access to these sick patients. I would ask that people suffering from cancer, MS, PTSD, not be sent to the far end of town to get the medicine that is much needed. I commend you very much for making an ordinance that allows cannabis here. Now let's make it easy for these patients to get access to that medicine. Last meeting, I was very confused. In particular, with the recusals that occurred with regard to my specific applications on 817 Industrial. First, 2 council members recused themselves, then the city attorney, all related to dispensary applications that were before the council. Then when my application for manufacturing and cultivation came up on the agenda, both council members were again absent. Yet after my applications failed to be raised by motions by the council, one of the recused council members came back in, and then the other remained absent. The whole process was very confusing. To me, especially considered I was one of the top 2 applicants by the city staff. The working relationship I had with them, that was excellent. Putting aside what happened or happens, I ask that if I have not, or the city staff has not, convinced you to vote for an approval of my dispensary, that you'd please allow me to obtain at the very least my manufacturing and cultivation permits. Manufacturing and cultivation requires the least intrusiveness to the community, as well as permits me to begin contributing instantly to the city of Hollister. Allow me to earn the privilege to a dispensary should the city ever expand the ordinance to more than 2 dispensaries. I'll work closely with the community. I'll work closely with the city staff and its members. I'll work on myself to make sure that I can provide a role model facility for the city. With manufacturing and cultivation in place, there would be no one from the public welcome to our facility, patient or not. Only employees would have access to the facility, and the same security detail plan that's in our application would be in place. I'll make a zero imprint facility. That means you wouldn't hear from us except for when we're paying our taxes and when we're contributing to the city. Please give me this opportunity to prove myself, and I assure you that you'll like me and that I can contribute to this community. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here today.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from council? No questions? This time we're going to open it for public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. J.W. Payne.
J.W. Payne. I'm not going to give my address. Dave already understands why not. Again, I've been against. Now I'm for. I'm still thinking about it. But the gentleman just spoke right now. I do live close by to him. So my concern would be if we do allow him to grow it, that we do it like it was in San Jose, what we looked at. We don't smell it like on 25. I know that's out. That's in the county. We're not talking about them. That's one of my concerns. The other concern was the security. I do see in his proposal, I like the security was going to take care of. I just hope we look at it as an opportunity to bring money into our community, but also help someone that does have cancer and the other issues that he mentioned. The only one I really know of personally is the cancer. We have to look at our community. If we're going to be doing it safely, let's do it safely. Let's do it where our kids around there. My kids do go to the gym, but if you guys feel the concerns of the safety of security, like I've talked to Dave, the chief there, that's my main concern. The smell in it and seeing it, and my kids are safe. And when I mean my kids, I mean my community of kids, not just my personal kids. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Elia Salinas.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm here in support of allowing manufacturing on Industrial Drive. I believe that the security system will actually be safer. I know that there have been some break-ins in some of the vehicles there in that block in the past. I believe that he will comply with having no public access and a very tight security. I think if he's going to manufacture as well, that it's part of the regulations anyway with regards to odor control. I don't think there'll be an issue, and I would like you all to consider allowing manufacturing as well as cultivation on there. I'm for no public access, which is why I'm supporting this applicant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marty Richmond.
Good evening again, Marty Richmond from Hollister. I have no horse in this race. I'm not supporting or opposing anyone because I don't think this entire issue can be handled one case at a time. I think you ought to have some vision for what you want this whole thing to look like. After all, it's going to impact all of the applications, all the appeals. Everything is going to impact the entire community, not just one place or another place. So I think you ought to have some vision, understanding that under the current limitations where you only give 2 dispensaries permits, if you give 2 out, then you can't give the 3rd out. So if you take them only in order, I don't know how you solve that problem. I'm just going to ask that you take everything into consideration that's on the table and do a good, better, best analysis and pick the best answers that's the best for the community. I know that sounds pretty simplistic, but it's a lot harder to do than it is for me to say. So I'm not recommending or opposing anything. I just think when you make your decisions, you need to think about it in terms of the entire issue, including the fact that we know that the dispensary really hinges on recreational use, which is what where the profit motive is. And I got nothing against profit motives, so don't read me wrong. I just think we know that people who do medical are going to want to do recreational, and they're counting on the fact that recreational and medical are going to wind up in the same law, as someone said earlier tonight, same regulatory authorities, and they're looking to the future. Well, I think you have to look to the future too and say, here's our vision of what we want it to look like. Now, I know that doesn't help you along, but at least I hope that it will lead to some understanding of what's at stake when you make these decisions. And if this little speech applies to every single one of the items that are going to come along later tonight, I'm not going to give the same speech, so just keep it in mind. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Julia Vansel.
Good evening. My name is Julia Vansel. I've been before you multiple times on this issue, so I will not take too much of your time. For me, this is not a moral issue. It is a planning issue. And as I've said before, I'm completely against it being on Industrial Drive. It's nothing against this gentleman. He seems like a nice guy, but we have over 700 kids a week that are coming through there. So I would ask that you don't put it on Industrial Drive. I think it's a little disingenuous what they've written in the appeal as far as not having any idea that there was a problem with people not wanting it on Industrial. He had the option to come to the same meetings that we all did and could have been made aware of that. So to me, that doesn't fly. He also wants to be a good neighbor, but he's had the building since May, and there's 5 business owners here. But he's never bothered to come over and introduce himself. In fact, I had to introduce myself to him and figure out who he was. So, and there's also all the other issues that are going on with the council members, so I can understand his frustration. It's really frustration for all of us, not just for people like him, because we do rely on you guys to make good decisions, and I think overall you really do, and you try hard, and I appreciate that, but we need that going forward. And I think not only do we need to handle this issue right now, but we need to be prudent about it. There's nothing that says we have to give all these permits out right now. I understand the growth and the economic part of it, but let's try it for a year with a few that we already have, and then let's see how that goes and see what problems arise. It's not necessary to do them all right now. So, in closing, I'm just going to ask you one more time to please not put it on Industrial. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Lisa Ravella.
Lisa Ravella, Hollister. Again, I've been here before. Just want to reiterate that all the businesses that are there have been there. We've struggled, we've suffered, we've tried to make our businesses grow, and it's hard to gauge this new thing coming in because it's new, and it's hard for us that have children coming to our business to say, yeah, this is great, when it might not be. And so we kind of just want to say, hey, take a second look and maybe not do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy Ulrich.
Hi. I've gotten it multiple times and shared my opinions. I'm asking again to please protect the street of Industrial Drive from cultivation, manufacturing, or dispensary of marijuana. I understand the heightened security. I understand the whole armed guard. I get all of that. But why would we want something there that needed all of that? We don't. I don't. Everybody I've talked to does not want any type of facility that needs that kind of security that close to children, not just on Industrial Drive, but Rancho San Justo around the corner, where my son attends school. And a lot of people's children attend school. I am so sorry that this man was encouraged. I'm so sorry that you've spent all of this money, and it is absolutely nothing against him and his family and his business. It's absolutely 100% about that 150 rule that got moved from 600 feet to 150. And that building's 156. It should never have been changed. I agree with the mayor that we need to go back and make the ordinance right in the first place, from the beginning, from the start, before anything else gets approved. We need to go back, fix what got changed and presented by someone who now can't even vote, and make it right from the beginning so that we can do this right if we're going to do this in Hollister. I support that 500%. And everybody that I've talked to about this issue, pro-marijuana, against marijuana, has nothing to do with that. Has everything to do with a planning issue on the one industrial road in town that services so many children. And that's what it comes down to. And so I ask you to please keep that in consideration. Please continue to fight with us and to represent us as a people and these homes that are 156 feet away. The smell, the traffic, the everything else that is the danger. I'm sorry. Anything that houses it, whether they're growing it, manufacturing it, or dispensing it, it's there. And there are a lot of really stupid people that will try and get their hands on it at whatever cost, with whatever security, with whatever's happening on that street at that time. Please keep this in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Becerra.
So good evening. Mr. Winter, the attorney for the applicant of Mr. Estrado, I don't think he's here. He talked to FB Jordan Incorporated, the manufacturer on his appeal. Page 5 states, had the applicant been notified that there was a controversy surrounding the building, he would have either 1, refrained from purchasing the building, 2, worked extensively with city staff, city council members, business owners, and the community to mitigate any public concerns. On page 5, the appeal for Playa Breeze Incorporated, Eric Hick cultivation applicant, makes the same statement. On page 7 of the appeal for Layla Landing Incorporated, Eric Heck dispensary, he makes the same statement. Based on his appeal, he filed applications for all 3 operations for 817 Industrial Drive on April 19, 2007. White Nola LLC purchased the property on or around May 9th of 2007, nearly a month before he indicates city staff requested that he submit the conditional use permit application and fees. Since June of 2016, you have been dealing with public comments and concerns about appropriate locations and zoning for these medical marijuana businesses, initially nearly approving an ordinance that would have allowed them throughout all zones of the city, including the downtown district and general commercial areas. But through public meetings, many, you have heard and listened to those of your constituents who have asked you to reconsider, which you did, and I want to thank you for that. You set forth a process by which applicants could apply for permits to operate for these business models. This year, you heard loud and clear from stakeholders who operate along the businesses, parents, and others that Industrial Drive was not conducive to operating such business. Although zoned industrial, one of the areas that you would allow them to operate, you made it clear that public comment and concerns would play a part in this process. Many have told you that Industrial Drive, primarily due to the family and youth-focused businesses on the same short street, had real concerns about any type of marijuana operation. You did not hear these concerns for the other industrial areas that you recently allowed these operations to continue, for good reason, because these type of family and youth-oriented businesses are not nearby. Was the applicant not present for these meetings? Did those working with him to help him, the industry lobbyists, others working on behalf of his interests, his local real estate partners who have been present and involved, attending nearly every meeting during the past year plus, not update him on the controversy of the street? CMAP provides recordings of these meetings and are easily accessed and viewed. And the one thing that concerned me, and I don't know Eric at all, but I do know that he really never told you or us or anyone that concurrently with this application, he also applied for a manufacturing dispensary permit in Grover Beach, California, which he recently was not chosen for. So he says he's a community member, but concurrently he's out looking to open these type of businesses in other areas. And I think it's important to know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue Whitehead.
Sue Whitehead, Hollister. I just want to say no on Industrial Drive. It doesn't make sense. Heightened security, armed guards, guns, a school, children. It doesn't make sense to anybody, particularly to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean Donahue.
Hi. Sean Donahoe again. Thank you. I spoke on state regulatory implementation and amendments prior. I will talk about local updates. What we're seeing throughout the state is, any other city that has a zone that they've approved that's an industrial zone that even has industrial in the name of the street, I don't think there would be a controversy, to be honest. You're seeing many of the other cities throughout the state go far below 600 feet. City of Emeryville is using 250 feet to a school for their dispensary ordinance, open to the public. I would also point out City of Los Angeles has aggressively analyzed this subject. I mean, of course, we get a bad rap. Medical marijuana for years was California was considered the Wild West largely because of the City of Los Angeles, which is finally moving forward towards a regulatory framework for all license types there. And for anything that's not a dispensary, they're using a 0-foot distance, 0 feet to any sensitive receptors, provided that the zoning is appropriate. And in this case, the zoning is appropriate. If the filtration and the security measures are in place, there will be no noticing this or any other facility in an appropriately zoned area. And there's been numerous studies, we don't have to guess, there's been numerous studies that having locally licensed cannabis facilities within your community will have a net increase in public safety. Thank you, both locally and citywide.
Thank you.
Jack Kirk.
Okay, thank you, Council. I'll try not to irritate anybody tonight. So I appreciate, even though I don't endorse the businesses, I appreciate higher level care. They came over, reached out to me a couple times. They purposely went over to the Melgard building over in that area to get away from houses, to get away from schools, to get away from things, and you don't hear any opposition from any of us over that. So they did their best to move away. Having it on if we had these businesses, whether they're if they do manufacturing, there's been plenty of cases up in San Jose things where they've had leakages from their exhaust systems. You got houses just downwind. You can have those houses complaining to you as a city council if there is any industrial smells going over. We think it's just too close to these businesses. These family-centered businesses have invested a lot of money into their facilities. They've been told that a lot of the families won't go down there anymore if there's marijuana businesses. So I think for these reasons, we need to look at not allowing anything on industrial. And had we left the ordinance the way it was at 600 feet, that wouldn't be a question at this point. You have security issues. You have lockdowns. You have children in the neighborhood. If something happened, as Marty says, humans are unpredictable, so we don't know what may happen in the future if there's some marijuana facilities there with the children just down the street. I think we need to, I encourage you to err on the safety of the children and the families and not approve anything on industrial. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gary Cameron.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk again. My name is Gary Cameron. I've been a resident of Hollister for 46 years now. And when we first started talking about marijuana, we were discussing compassionate use for medical purposes. And I think everybody was pretty much in favor of that. I think that was appropriate. We've since moved well beyond medical marijuana. We're now talking about manufacturing, distribution, dispensing, testing, and so forth. And apparently money's the big driving force here. I don't think that's what Hollister citizens were asking for initially. I think that we are, why are we considering even all this when we have more marijuana produced in the state of California than we can even use? It's unfortunate that the city staff, quote, made numerous assurances that the building on Industrial Way was in full compliance, and that led to this sale and so forth. Purchases were made prior to you, the city council, approving the location, which I think was inappropriate. The very fact that such high security is proposed is an indication of the type of business we are considering putting in a family-friendly area so close to residences. I think that's inappropriate. You might compare that to me telling you that I'd like to put a prison in, and it's going to be okay because I'm going to put chain link fence and guards and cameras and high security in, so you don't have to worry about having that type of facility in your neighborhood. I believe the first priority of those who represent us in the city government should be the health and welfare of the citizens and the environment where we want to raise our families. I think it's appropriate to put I think it's inappropriate to put a marijuana facility in this type of an area where it's family friendly. I think that if this was allowed, it would create complaints from residents who live downwind from this facility as far as growing and the smell. Like it's already been mentioned, we were getting smell just driving down Highway 25 now. You pick it up when you drive down the road, and that could be an additional problem. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. This time we're going to close the public hearing. Any questions or comments from council? Is there a motion? Okay, this item dies for lack of a motion. We're going to go to item 4.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I can interrupt just so that we can start to put these things sort of to rest, is the motion that the appeal is denied. I think we need to have a decision rendered here so that there's no more confusion about what process or part of the process they are in at this point.
Somebody can make a motion to...
I'll make a motion to deny that.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
And again, for clarity, that is for the FPT Jordan cultivation appeal.
Yes.
Okay.
Item E4.
The next item, the applicant, Playa Breeze Incorporated, is appealing the City Council's denial of a cannabis use permit development agreement to operate a medical cannabis manufacturing facility at 817 Industrial Drive pursuant to Section 5.42.270 of Medical Cannabis Ordinance Number 1131. Staff has ensured that the process outlined in the ordinance was complied with according to the appeal procedure. The city clerk transmitted a written statement to the City Council, and on September 5th, the City Council set the appeal date for October 2nd. Staff is recommending that the City Council hears the appellant, conduct an appeal hearing, and render a final decision.
Okay. Any questions from council? This time we're going to open public hearing. Do we have speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
J.W. Payne?
I'm sorry, I moved too quickly.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead and.
Thank you. Just want to say I listened to everything you guys are saying. I completely understand where you guys are coming from. I've been in real estate for over 12 years. We've built everything from residential properties, commercial houses, boutique hotels. My greatest accomplishment was getting entitled to 55 10-unit, 10-story hotel in downtown Los Angeles. When I first got in this business, I was the only person out there that went and got plans and permits and did everything right through the city. So when you're talking about facilities with no smell, our mechanical plans are so extraordinary. I don't think anyone's ever seen anything like that in the industry. I know none of you guys had a chance to influence the planning or the ordinance and how it was set. And I'm sorry you didn't get that opportunity, but I assure you, if I do get my license, I will sit down with all of you guys, give you a chance, help me plan my facility, and show you my skills and able to implement something that is not only not intrusive to the community, but will ensure that it is built properly. You're talking mechanical plans for the air condition, the HVAC system, so there's not any air coming in or out. Obviously, the biggest problem with these medicine is the testing and everything, so keeping the air in the facility and only in the facility and not exhausting anything is the utmost priority. How we implemented such programs that, with water waste is one of the biggest issues. We designed a huge planner where we grow almonds that absorbs all the water, these sophisticated systems that you don't see anywhere else. Again, the city put us top 2. The reason why we're top 2 is because we are the best at implementing this. This is something that's happening in your city. And if it happens, you want the best people out there to be able to implement it, and I am that person. I'm only here to contribute to this community. I left Los Angeles, and I pursued Grover Beach, because there was an opportunity to be a legal, permitted facility until Hollister came online, and that was the first property I bought, and put everything into this because I felt like this was the community that would embrace it. I mean, the fact that you came first, I commend you on that, and that's extraordinary. Please give me this opportunity, and I'll prove myself. Give me one permit today, just one. Give me the cultivation. I will prove myself to expand to manufacturing. I don't need. It's a privilege. It's not. I would love that opportunity. And if you could please give that to me, I swear you guys will be happy with me. There's a lot of business that comes into different communities, and if you want to encourage a business to come here, you got to accept people from the outside sometimes. And I appreciate that acceptance into your community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'll open for public comment. Do we have any speaker cards?
She called me already.
She called you already?
I got dinner ready for me. Fading away. That was a joke. Okay, so I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but I live right behind where his house or his business is going to be. And again, I repeat myself, the smell is going to be really important to me. And my small housings over there. If he could make it, and it sounded like, he was really, I thought he was going to cry how passionate he was. And I didn't mean that in a bad way, sir. But if he could do it like the ones we went over and saw in San Jose, where I stood out there by the door and didn't smell it, then I'm okay with that. And if it's not going to be having people go in and out, then they don't need a whole bunch of security standing out there with armed guards. And I'm okay with that too. If we could fix it like the ones we saw in San Jose, the 2 of them we went over and looked at, where you drove by and you did, I got lost and I had a GPS and I couldn't find it because there was no sign. And I'm a truck driver. It's embarrassing to say that I couldn't find the place because I was looking for a pot place. So if we could fix it in our community where it's not going to look like a drug place where it's going to be there, we're not going to have a whole bunch of people standing around, and it's not going to smell. Again, I said give the kid a chance. I can't believe I just said a kid. I'm not that old. But give the guy a chance if we can make sure it does not make the smell.
Thank you.
Elias Salinas.
Good evening again. Again, I support having medical marijuana manufacturing and cultivation. I think we're in cultivation now. On Industrial Drive. And I must confess, Chief Westrick, and to the City Council, that there already has been existing cannabis industry on that block that no one has known about for years. There's nobody flagging it. There's people walking down the street. There's people driving down the street, and no one has known about it. This is going to be a permitted facility, and they will be abiding by the regulations that you have set forth, and he will be in compliance. He's not going to be waving any red flags. And when you drive by there right now, no one knows what type of businesses are in there, and you're still not going to know that those type of businesses are going to be there. That being said, I think Marty said something about humans, they're unpredictable. I am a member of Ravella's Gym. I know it doesn't look like it, but I am. And there have been numerous times, not numerous, there's been a handful of times or less, where the police department has gone down there because of domestic violence and because of just members there themselves not getting along and actually getting in physical altercations, as well as vehicles have been broken into along that drive. Again, there will be security, they're not going to be armed guards, and it's just going to be no public access whatsoever. So I would really like you to please consider allowing cultivation on Industrial Drive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue Whitehead.
I'd just like to say the same thing again. No, the community don't want it. And I think that we vote City Council members in to represent us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack Kirk.
Same issue, right? So I say the same thing I said last time.
Do you want to come to the podium and make that comment?
So I understand you got them split, for, 3 ways, but we'd again get encouraged for the same reasons not to have anything on industrial. So any of the activities, because I think especially in the manufacturing and the cultivation, the smells and stuff are going to get you guys complaints later. So encourage you not to do that around the children.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Rovella.
Lisa Ravella, Hollister. I appreciate your predicament. I'm a little confused as to why you would buy a building and not get a permit, or at least have it contingent on that. But again, I still want to say no. Thanks.
Thank you.
Amy Ulrich.
Amy Ulrich, and I am appreciative of your experience. I am appreciative that you are keeping those things in mind, and I am not doubting your ability to keep things safe with your facility. But at the same time, crap happens, and you say, "Give us a chance to be on your street. Give us a chance. Take a risk." Is what you're saying in my mind. Take the risk. Take the risk. Give me a chance to prove myself, because then I'll be manufacturing, and then I can get my dispensary. And so for me, inviting you at all onto our street is inviting you forever, and to basically open up to all 3 items, which is not okay with me. Thank you. Please say no.
Barbara Saunders.
Who's that?
Barbara Saunders.
Oh.
I too concur with Ms. Ulrich and other people's opinion. The one other thing that surprised me, having driven people who were ill to the dispensary in San Jose, I noticed that some of the people going in and out and taking whatever they got with them ate it or smoked it in their vehicles and then proceeded to drive off wherever they go on the road, which would, in my mind, perceive as driving under the influence, which I believe is still illegal. And that worries me too. The other worries, well, they are the other worries. Smells, possible crime, etc. It just doesn't seem to be the right place. And I really was much more in favor of the further out on the edge of town places, away from the schools, and for the most part, city streets. And that's about all I have to say.
Thank you.
There are, Mr. Mayor,
There are no more?
there are no more.
All right, this time we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve or deny?
I make a motion that we deny it.
There's a motion to deny. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll move to item E5.
Thank you. Item number 5 is Layla's Landing is appealing the City Council's denial of a cannabis use permit to operate a medical cannabis dispensary at 817 Industrial Drive pursuant to Section 5.42270 of the Medical Cannabis Ordinance Number 1131. Staff has ensured that the process outlined in the ordinance was complied with according to the appeal procedure. The City Clerk transmitted a written statement to the City Council, and on September 5th, the City Council set the appeal date for October 2nd.
Okay.
Yep.
Hello again. Just wanted to thank everybody. Thank you guys, everybody, for expressing your concern. It's a very legitimate concern. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. I purchased this property, and I committed myself to this property. I'm not designing a prison here. I'm designing a facility for medicine for people that need it. I'm going to be working as hard as I can to continue that pursuit, and I'm going to be sure to work with you guys, all my neighbors, mayor, council members, everybody in the city staff, to make sure we do this right and that every concern is heard and that we plan it the right way. But I'm going to keep pursuing this. But thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with me.
Thank you. This time, open for public hearing. Do we have speakers?
Yes. J.W. Payne.
I'm against selling it.
Elias Salinas.
Good evening. The neighborhood has been expressing their concerns with regards to the safety of the children all along. I've always thought that it wouldn't be a concern for the children to be driven in their cars from one place to another, driving in front of the facility. However, based on their concerns, I would recommend that Layla's Landing would have declined and decided to pull their application with regards to having a dispensary on Industrial Drive based on the concerns of the citizens. So I respect that. That is why I've chosen to say in favor of having allowed them to have been a non-public access facility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue Whitehead?
Again, it's still not a suitable venue, and I'm actually surprised someone would purchase a property before they even had any idea of whether they would be granted a permit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack Kirk?
Again, we'd encourage you to, community would encourage you to not to allow cultivation or dispensary on industrial. And we appreciate your interest in this.
Thank you.
Kenny Johnson?
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I feel like there's been a whole lot of mistakes made in this. I don't understand how a council member can sell property to a council member can have his family sell property to a place, guaranteeing them something that hasn't even been stated that they're in that distance, and then turn around and to change the distance ahead of time. So with that being said, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'll just put it this way. I've heard all kinds of things here today that there's a reason why we're not L.A. for the statements about that L.A. is still thinking about this. If L.A. hasn't even figured it out.
Please, hang on a second.
Excuse
Please. We're here as a council to listen to the speakers. Speaker, please continue.
Yep. If LA
Mr. Donahue.
If LA hasn't figured it out, and if San Francisco is saying they're not even going to do anything till after the first of the year when they can make laws on this, I think it's kind of insane for us to be pressed to do something because they bought a building. Also, I am a patient, and I drive to San Jose. And the place where I was going in San Jose at one point in time had to be moved from the location that they were at into a more industrial area, okay, where there is nobody around there that isn't on their job. There's no customers walking in there on the places around them. There's none of that. I'm not one of the ones who sits in the parking lot. I bring my stuff home because it's what I need so I can be able to sleep with my back the way it is. I'm not looking forward to any of the personal use. I kind of think it's crazy. And then what's going to end up happening is that we're going to end up having this huge rush for all this insanely high THC pot here, that doesn't help one patient because I can't take the THC pot. See, that's why I drive to San Jose. That's why I do things the right way. And I just ask that before we make any decisions to put anything over there, that we start looking at the locations that people have picked and go back to why are they trying to put everything so close to places where, it was 600 feet. It was 600 feet, then it got changed to 150. Go back to 600.
Thank you.
Steve Becerra?
That was quick.
Sorry.
Good evening once again, and I just wish that Eric would have come, and I have no business on Industrial Drive. I have a real estate company downtown. That's where this all started for me. So I just wish he would have come to those business owners and walked the block and talk to them, because obviously that was a fatal mistake. But I have looked at his bio, and I understand he's in real estate, and he's been successful. And so I would encourage him, if he wants to build a 10-story hotel in our city, we'd support him. If he wants to manufacture climbing rope and other equipment that would be able to be used at our national park, Pinnacles, south of town, we'd encourage him. But you're moving along. We are soon going to have medical marijuana dispensed here in town for those who are going to San Jose, Santa Cruz, Salinas, and such right now. We have one approved. Hopefully you'll approve a second one shortly, so people, like I've said all along, we need to have local access to medical marijuana. With that said, I think that our next battle will be adult use or recreational marijuana. And I think that, as you can tell, I don't believe the flavor of this community is anywhere ready for recreational sales, recreational use outside of what's obviously legal now. You can grow your 6 plants. You can possess your ounce or less. You can't use it in public, just like everywhere else. But as far as commercial, recreational cultivation, manufacturing, that's where this is going, because these folks are going to that are going to get maybe these 80 or so people that are going to come in front of you sooner or later are going to likely, once they get their permit and pay their fee, which is not that very much, they're going to then look at the state and say, look, we've been sponsored by the city of Hollister. And they're going to get their state permit. And I can't believe that 80 of those people are going to continue to stay in Hollister once they get their state permit, because it's about recreational use. So I just encourage you to keep listening. I know that the three of you have heard a lot tonight, and you're making decisions for people that aren't even in your district, and that's really important, because this facility is in any one of your districts. So you're not only making decisions for the people in your district and people that voted you into office, but you're making decisions for people that are actually inside that district, and I commend you for your actions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have to be honest, I've got a list of people that want to speak on like all of them. So if I've missed anybody, I think I've called everyone who wanted to speak.
Is there anyone else that'd like to come up? Mr. Donahue?
From there, we're here.
No, you're going to speak from the podium.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're apologizing? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
That's fine. You can sit. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve or deny the
Motion that we deny.
The motion to deny? Second. Motion is second to deny. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Go to item E6.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant, Haven Dispensary, is appealing the City Council's denial of a cannabis use permit to operate a medical cannabis dispensary facility at 191 San Felipe Road, Unit Q, pursuant to Section 5.42270 of the Medical Cannabis Ordinance Number 1131. Staff has ensured that the process outlined in the outline was complied with according to the appeal procedure. The city clerk transmitted a written statement to the City Council, and then on September 5th, the City Council set the appeal date for October 2nd, 2017. I'm going to go through some of the claims that the applicant has made, and then just in between them respond to how the city and staff have replied to them. Heaven's medical cannabis application was evaluated pursuant to resolution number 2017-36 and evaluated according to Section 3 of the application process dispensaries of that resolution. Under Stage 1, applicant and the facility eligibility, Stage Section 1, Haven's application was evaluated for completeness as required by this section. Components of this section included applicants' articles of incorporation, organization, bylaws, operating agreement, certificate of status, entity status, Board of Equalization seller's permit, and federal employer identification number. Under Section 2, Haven's application was evaluated for conformance with zoning and sensitive use restrictions contained in Section 5.42160 of the Municipal Code, and it was determined that Haven's proposed location of medical cannabis dispensary met with all of the sensitive use requirements, which was 600 feet from a school, 150 from a conforming residential use, religious institutions, and licensed rehab facilities. Stage 2 is the applicant and facility evaluation and scoring. Haven's claim that the application was scored incorrectly and scored with only 50 points over 150 points for qualifications of principles. The City Council voted for a binary scoring method to objectively evaluate if the applicant had sufficiently met the minimum qualifications for each application component. Despite the binary scope mandate, the scoring analysis uses sliding scale, which gives applicants a varying points for qualifications of principles. Additionally, the applicant's scoring sheet indicates that staff calculated scores based on comparison to other applicants. The application procedure does not permit staff to make relative and subjective comparisons. This is expressly reserved for the City Council. In response to that, under Section 1, Haven's application scored a total of 1,525 points based on the point system that measured in all of the components of the application requirements under the Municipal Code, including qualifications of principles, site plan and floor plan, security plan, dispensing procedures, business plan, community benefits plan, employee manual, tracking software and procedures, signage plan, odor management plan, and policies and procedures for adopting, monitoring, implementing, and enforcing all the other requirements of Hollister Municipal Code, Chapter 5.2. Under Section 2, Haven's application was evaluated by staff in Cannabis Regulatory Committee, which is comprised of fire, police, building, planning, code enforcement, and public works, and determined that it was necessary to recommend the top 2 medical cannabis dispensary applications to the City Council for a final determination. Under Stage 3 was the applicant and facility evaluation. The final stage required the City Council to determine which application, which was a maximum of 2, shall receive a medical cannabis dispensary regulatory permit according to the procedure. Haven's application was properly included in the August 14th, 2017 City Council meeting as a public hearing. A report from staff was also delivered to the City Council, followed by a brief presentation from the applicant. Staff submitted dispensary applications, which was a total of 7, before the City Council and scheduled interviews at a special meeting on August 14th, 2017, providing an opportunity for all applicants to present their proposed application. Upon conclusion of the interview process, Haven's application was unsuccessful due to lack of motion from the City Council. Additional claims that the appellant has made is consideration of an ineligible applicant. The appellant claims that Higher Level of Care, which was one of the dispensaries, as well as Layla's Landing Incorporated and Monterey Bay Alternative Medicine medical cannabis dispensary applications were incomplete due to missing required signage plan. Stage 3 of the medical cannabis resolution number 2017-36 states that only 8 of the highest scoring applications will move to Stage 3. The city received a total of 7 applications. They were all reviewed, considered by staff, and brought before the City Council. So that's in response to the consideration of ineligible applicants. Based on that section of the resolution, we brought all of them, not just 2. We brought them all. Deficient agendizing. The appellant claims that if the applications were properly scored, then Haven would have received the maximum possible score, exceeding both Higher Level of Care and Layla's Landing application scores, which are incomplete according to the applicant. However, Haven was not agendized for issuance of a medical cannabis dispensary permit, but only a presentation. In response to that, staff did not deem Higher Level of Care or Layla's Landing's applications incomplete. Another claim is erroneous noticing. Public noticing for the August 14th, 2017 meeting stated that a conditional use permit instead of a cannabis use permit. In response to that, staff determined that although the applications all complied with zoning regulations pursuant to the cannabis ordinance, it was important for the immediate surrounding parcel owners, which has a radius of 300 feet, that received notice of potential medical cannabis dispensary operators. By doing so, neighbors and the community members would be informed and made part of this process. That's it for the appeal.
That it? Thank you very much. Does the applicant?
The applicant is here.
Like to speak?
Thank you, Maria. Honorable Mayor, council members, I only have a couple things to say. I just have two small corrections. One is that I am not appealing the denial of my application. I am appealing the several actions and decisions made at the August 14th, 2017 City Council meeting. And also, the other correction is that the ineligible applicants are listed in my appeal, and they are not all due to a missing required signage plan. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay. Is there any questions from council? Okay. Thank you. This time we're going to open for public comment. Public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
J.W. Payne?
He left.
I believe he left.
Done. Elias Linus?
Good evening. I'm here in support of Mr. Rodriguez. I would like for him to get some type of a business out there, and if for whatever reason the city decides that it's whatever not appropriate within the range of residents, which I believe that it does, otherwise he would not pick the location. Maybe that, again, you have a fear because McDonald's is there and you have a fear for the kids or whatever. Maybe the city council would allow him for reconsideration instead of having a walk-in dispensary, that he might be able to have a delivery out of the facility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack Kirk?
Taylor's a fine young man. He's very polite. He's been in my office a couple times. We've visited, but I still can't support a dispensary that's right next to where children are at. If we had the spirit of the original ordinance, which was to have 600 foot, his dispensary would not qualify. We have the new McDonald's there. We have children around. I think it's just not a great location. Other than that, so I would suggest that you don't approve it for that location. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kenneth Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is real simple. Hillside Christian Fellowship is a stone's throw away, and it's less than 600 feet between our children's church building and the location they're talking about. Also, our church does a teen recovery program that the county is involved with us, with this kids coming out of probation and whatnot. And I just don't think it's ideal to be in that location. Any other location would be fine, but that's just too close. That's it.
Thank you.
Brad Barbeau?
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
I recognize that I am an outsider. I am not a member of the community. And I appreciate having been able to be part of this process because it's fascinating watching a new market like this, given my academics, watching it evolve on the legal and policy side. I think the main comment I'd have to make at this point, besides extreme support for a very excellent student and I think somebody who would run a great business, but that's not the issue in front of us. The issue here, their appeal is on procedural grounds, so this really isn't about what the particular location is at the moment. What I would say is I think as this happens, this is a business where you really want the people who get the dispensaries to follow the rules and follow not just the letter but the spirit of the rules. And so I'd encourage you to set that example with them by making sure that the rules are being followed very closely that you have set for this whole process as you go forward, because that is going to set kind of the culture, if you will, under which they open their businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marty Richmond.
Marty Richmond again. Good evening. I don't know if a previous speaker, Ms. Salinas, was speaking on behalf of the applicant or not, and I don't know. I have to plead ignorance. I don't know if we have the option of saying, well, you can run a delivery service out of there. I think realistically it has nothing to do with the individual, because I'm not in picking people based on their personalities or where they're from. Realistically, a delivery service has less impact than a storefront. I'll use that for lack of a better term. A dispensary with a storefront. I don't know if we have that option. If we do have that option, if that is built into our system, I think you should consider it, because I think overall, a delivery service is a different impact. If you ask me personally, and that's all I can do is give you my personal, a delivery service is a different impact level than a dispensary that has a storefront operation. That's just my feeling on it. But many speakers come up here with many ideas, and some of them are not built into the regulation. We can't do anything with it. But maybe if you decide to relook at these applicants, whoever they are, wherever they're from, maybe we should have covered that. Once again, I think we're suffering from haste we did on this. I know we spent a lot of hours. The question is, were they effective? If I was king for a day and nobody's making me the king, I would have made a special zoning requirement for these, and then people wouldn't be running around wondering if they're in a good spot. Okay? If you make a special zoning. But of course, that would have required that you offended some real estate interest in the local city, and maybe that wouldn't have flown either. But if there is a chance that we can change this to a delivery service with different impact requirements, because it is a delivery service, therefore many of the other requirements do not, work. I encourage you to look at it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Gary Cameron.
Thank you, Council. I like Taylor. I think he's a great guy, but I think it's a bad location. I think that I don't want to take my grandkids down to McDonald's and the pizza place or the Chinese restaurant there. It's just not an appropriate place. I think that when you set a business like this up, it's a target for thieves and so forth, and therefore you have to provide security. And in a strip mall, I don't know how you can put a barbed wire fence around that. You can probably put up some security cameras. But that's the concern that I would have. It's not an area where I'd want to take my kids. I think it's going to affect the existing businesses. Had he chosen a different location, I'd be in support of him. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I believe we do have another speaker. Mr. Becerra would like to
Oh, I'm
speak.
sorry.
Trying to make it somewhat quick. I also have got to know Taylor over the last year and a half, and I think he's a stand-up guy. I think he's smart. I think he's respectable. He's local grown, and I also have to agree with his attorney that this process didn't go that smooth. We had a big hiccup in the very beginning. We didn't follow our own procedure, but that's said and done now. I like Elia's idea about. I think I support the guy. I just cannot support the location he's chosen. I will support him in the future if he could find a different location that's not so sensitive. And I would support I would support him getting a permit at that location for delivery only. And I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but maybe he listens to what's being said here, and he's seen what's happened to other people, and I'd love to see him have a dispensary in Hollister, even if it's the third dispensary sometime down the road when we decide that we need another one or it's working out. But so I encourage you to, if that's an option, to give him a delivery permit at that location. I would say do it, and hopefully, if you wanted to open a storefront dispensary, he would be able to find a better location that wouldn't cause so much concerns of the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now there are no more speakers.
Okay. This time we're going to close public hearing. Is there a motion to approve or deny?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to deny number 6.
Second. Motion and a second to deny the appeal. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Let's take a 5-minute break. I need more coffee.
I need a coffee.
That's why I got coffee tonight.
see what happens next.
We're going to move to item F1.
Are you doing this, Charlie, or no?
F1, that would be me.
Oh, that you? Oh, that's you. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, so this is the second reading of the ordinance that was addressed at the last meeting. It's just some minor amendments, so this is a mere formality, but at this time, I would recommend that the city adopt the ordinance formally. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions from council? No questions? Any speaker cards? No? All right, is there a motion?
Motion to approve. Sorry, I'm looking for the number. I lost it.
1141.
Read by title only.
Thank
Would
you.
be to adopt ordinance number 1141.
1141, thank you.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Move to item F2. At this point, I'm going to excuse myself. I own the property next door. I'm going to pass the gavel to Vice Mayor Flower.
Christine, are you handling this one?
Sorry, I'm trying to document as well.
No worries.
Give me just 1 second. I have to note when he left. Okay. So at the last council meeting of September 18th, the city council certified the city elections officials' certification of sufficiency of the referendum petition in regards to resolution number 2017-139, which was a resolution of the City Council of the City of Hollister approving an execution of a development and disposition agreement between the City of Hollister, the Del Curto Brothers Group, and the Community Foundation for San Benito County. The council at this time has a choice. They must choose to either, I've listed four of your choices. You may, 1, repeal the resolution in its entirety. 2, call for the holding of a general municipal election, and I listed the costs for you. That would be your $25,000 to $30,000 option, and that would be in November. The next choice would be to call for a special statewide primary election on Wednesday, June 5th, for submission to the qualified voters, and that would be your $125,000 option. Or you may call for the holding of an overtime election on Tuesday, April 10th, 2018, which would be your most expensive, which would be over $200,000.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from the council? Councilmember Luna?
Yes, just a clarification again. Should our city clerk, should the opinion from the Attorney General's office come prior to us making a decision, well, prior to whatever decision we make today to go to it, either whatever election it may be? Would that just null the action taken tonight?
Realizing that might be something that you would be concerned with, there's really nothing in the elections code that calls for such a thing. So you basically have these choices. However, in my department summary, I did ask that, or was it even in my staff recommendation, that the City Council receives information, motion to adopt one of the 4 resolution choices, and if the direction is to call for the holding of an election, to direct staff to create a separate resolution to the San Benito County Register of Voters to request consolidation and election within the time frame allowed in 2018. So I want to, there's really nothing that calls for a
City
Attorney
Attorney,
General.
if I
Maybe
may
you can weigh
assist.
in.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll ask the
So-
legal counsel.
So, yeah, the question, the legal question posed by Councilwoman Luna is a good question. And actually, that would be something that the City Council would still be able to entertain, even should they decide on an election option tonight as opposed to a repeal. That option will always be available. It will be available by way of a motion for reconsideration on the item if the matter is brought before the City Council after receiving the opinion from the AG's office prior to the submission of the election option, if that's chosen by the City Council, to the county clerk. So, for instance, by way of example, should the City Council decide to go with a resolution that they'd like to place this item for election at the next general election in November of 2018, and the AG's office comes out with a determination that the referendum is unlawful because it involves an administrative act as opposed to a legislative act, and let's say that opinion is brought before or submitted to the city in, let's say, the month of December of this year, then at that point in time, because the election is for the following year in November of 2018, the city would have the option to reconsider the decision to order the referendum to an election by the voters. So that option is clearly available. However, that option can't be included in these resolutions. That exists separate and apart from these resolutions. These resolutions are driven by the Elections Code.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other comments or questions from the council? I'd like to hear public comment, then reserve my comments for after, please. Councilmember Friend?
No public comment.
Let's open it up to public comment.
Margie Barrios.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, council members. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm here in support. I'm Margie Barrios, by the way, community member, and I'm here in support of the efforts to restore the 400 block of downtown Hollister. The earthquake of 1989, which most of us remember very well, destroyed our buildings, but not our spirit of philanthropy. We are faced with a great opportunity. I think this is one of the greatest opportunities that this city council has had for a long time, and that is to rebuild with a great purpose. An indoor philanthropic center will serve our community year-round, rain or shine, cold or hot. There is a plan for a wonderful legacy to be built, and that is for our generations to come and for generations to enjoy. Let's not wait another 28 years as we've waited already. We've waited too long to do anything about the 400 block. Many generous people in our community, and you know many of them, are more fortunate than others and have given to our nonprofits to benefit our children, our seniors, our students, the ill, our community in general. These nonprofits have been excellent stewards and will continue to make San Benito County proud. A place for them is a place for all of us. So I thank you, City Council. I thank you for having the vision of wanting to rebuild the 400 block, and I thank you for your strong leadership.
Thank you.
Gary Byrne.
Good evening. You're actually all still smiling. I'm impressed. I asked Mr. Ray Fran to give coffee for all of us with Irish whiskey, but he declined.
It's on the way.
It's on its way. I'm Gary. I'm with the Community Foundation, and I'm here to share with you tonight our thanks on behalf of the board of the Community Foundation for all your actions up to this part. A year ago, the city came to the Community Foundation and said, we heard that you were looking for a place to build a philanthropic centre, and the 400 block has to be sold to redevelop the downtown. So we were very excited when the Delcurta brothers came to us and said, we'd like to partner with you. We knew that the Community Foundation, that we wouldn't be able to build a philanthropic centre on the whole 400 block because it was too large for us. So when they came with the idea of bringing people downtown with the condos and having much retail space in the bottom, we loved the idea. So when a donor came to us and says, Gary, we would like to give a gift to the community of San Benito County for a philanthropic centre to support all the nonprofits. And as the four of you know, because you're very involved with our community, we have 142 nonprofits who serve San Benito County. Now, we're not going to house 142 nonprofits, it's not practical, 9,000 square feet. But we really do hope to be a centre for philanthropy, just like Margie said, where people will gather and give back to the community. We also think that by the philanthropic centre being there with the Delcurta brothers, it will be a regeneration of the downtown association, of the whole downtown community, which we have support. We know that a lot has gone on the last few months with petitions going back and forth, and you're in a position tonight to say, where do we go from here? I like to hear what we just heard, that we're hoping that you will hear from the Attorney General very soon. We hope that the city is putting a lot of pressure on getting an answer back from the Attorney General, and that answer will be a positive answer. The Community Foundation is looking forward, going forward with this, and our hope is that we can break ground sooner than later, and that we can build something that the community will be proud of, and will also bring other businesses and others to our downtown community. I'm also here representing the board, and if there's any questions you'd like to ask me, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Victor Maroney?
Good evening, Vice Mayor, council members. I was looking at this a little bit differently, and I wanted to express that to you, having been an educator for many years. And really, this is a First Amendment to the Constitution issue. I know a lot of us get caught up in the Second Amendment and the other ones, but you may remember the very First Amendment that our framers wanted us to enjoy was the freedom of speech and assembly and religion, etc. But tucked at the very end was the right to petition your government. And it seems to me that the citizens of Hollister did that. And that's what the city clerk or the interim city clerk has pointed out, that the elections office has enumerated that process, has counted those petitions and found them valid. And now you have a simple choice tonight, which the election code is very crystal clear. State of California says either repeal the whole thing, or if you choose not to do that, allow the people their right to vote. Now, I'm a big fan of letting people have the right to vote. I think that's a great thing. As an educator, I believe in educating the public. I think that's a great idea. Now, looking at the other three options, it's obvious you need to have this in November. Not only does that give the time to educate people so that all these people out here who have come to speak to you can make their case, either go this way or that way, right? But also, it's extremely economical. Think if you have a special election that costs over $100,000 versus one that can be consolidated in your regular citywide election in November, makes much more sense. So I'm here to advocate for that choice, since apparently there's some disagreement with the court of higher authority, being the Attorney General. Obviously, if a court of higher authority comes in, whether it's the Attorney General or the Supreme Court or whatever, of course you're going to go with them, and that's sort of a non-issue. So tonight your decision is pretty simple. Either repeal the whole thing, or what I'm suggesting, based on our First Amendment, all our citizens enjoy, is to call and hold the election on November 6th, 2018, and allow the citizens the opportunity over the next year to fully educate themselves, go out, attend forums, really get engaged in this issue. Then it will be a real decision that the public wants, not something that, just kind of happened that government does sometimes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mike Fisher?
Hello, thank you very much. My name is Mike Fisher, born and raised in this town, and I'm now a new business owner, downtown Hollister. I'm coming in a little late in the game on this subject, and I should have voiced my opinion a little bit earlier, but I would like to come in and support the restoration of the 400 block. I believe in the restoration of not just the 400 block, but downtown Hollister. I'm invested in it, and I know lots of people who have tried to be invested in downtown Hollister, and this is the first step in the right direction for our small town. And I urge you to push it to the ballot in November and let the community decide, because I really trust the people who live in this town, and they will make the right decision. And I just also urge that you make decisions that you keep your downtown in mind, because that's the real heart of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard Ferreira.
Richard Ferrer, downtown property owner. I believe we still have a democracy. And the four of you were all elected by the citizens of Hollister, not by a large area, but by separate districts. So we got a great representation of how you people were elected. And when you're elected in your position, it's to make a decision on, and we're leaving it up to you to make the decision after you get all the information. And I think you guys made a wonderful decision when you voted for the 400 block that's on the board. And the last thing I want to see is that repealed. We're kind of at the position where the state of California is lazy and don't look at us, and is in being tardy and giving us a decision how this goes. So I feel that the best decision we got is to put this off until the November decision, 2017-246, and I hope you choose that resolution so we could put it off to as far as we can. And I'm sure that the citizens here are going to go and try to get that Attorney General to make a decision before the end of the year. I know I'm going to try to do my part, because you guys made the best decision as you represented the people of Hollister, and not a small individual people got riled up without not knowing what's going on. We've been waiting for 28 years for this project. So that's all I have to say. I hope you can make the decision to put this off as long as possible, and we're going to go after that Attorney General.
Thank you. Thank you.
Marty Richmond.
Good evening, Marty Richmond from Hollister. Had you proposed a monument to me, there would be no objections from me. I agree 100% with the previous speaker who said the election code tells you exactly what your choices are. You either appeal the previous resolution, or you go forward with some version of a future election. I recommend also that you take his recommendation, which said November of 2018. I think that's a logical choice because of the fact that it's the least cost. It also gives you time in front of our filing at the Elections Department if the AG comes in. And then if the AG comes in later after you file with the Election Department, my understanding is, and your counsel will straighten it out if I'm wrong, that you can then file for judiciary, have the judiciary come in and change and repeal the proposal. So that's the best answer. But I would ask you to do a step further, because I know how you voted, those of you who voted on this issue. And the step further is to at the appropriate time, ask the staff to prepare a financial impact statement for the various options. What is the financial impact to the city if, in fact, the voters say they want to repeal your decision? That's for a future, but we ought to get going, because in the event there is an election, we ought to be prepared to be able to tell the people, this is how much you're going to spend. I have my idea what I think it is. I would like the staff to confirm that the numbers are correct, or correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's the obvious decision. I don't think there is any wiggle room. I don't think being angry about it, not doing anything is a viable option. The people have met the requirement of 10% to get you to this point, and that's all they need to do is meet their legal obligation, and that should be respected. And so we are to the point, and now you got to make a decision. November 18 looks attractive to me because I'm a cheapskate, and I don't want to spend $100,000 for a special election on top of everything else. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
There are no more speakers, Vice Mayor.
Okay, at this point, we'll close public comment. Councilmember Friend.
I've been waiting for this for a few days, and I've been thinking about it. You know, and to answer everybody that spoke tonight, thank you for speaking tonight. As it was said before, we were elected, the four of us were elected by we represent 37,000 people, not 1,600 people who believe the lies that were told on Facebook. They have never told anybody the numbers. Just if we go to the cheap election, which probably is what's going to happen, we're still going to have to spend $360,000 for that piece of property to sit there as a lawn for another 25 years. Because nobody's come up with a plan and said, oh, if you don't build this, we're going to do this. We just want an open space. Well, it's been an open space for 28 years and nobody did anything with it. So now we have the four people that listened over a year, we've been talking about this, listened to all the different decisions, finally came up with a plan to develop it, and we decided that was the best way to go. It was an agreement done between the city and the state that we had to do this, which was signed by the same person who decided on Facebook to change everybody's mind. He has a conflict, and he can't sit here and talk to you about it, but he can go on Facebook and stir everybody up. I think that's an abuse of a power, and I think the state should look into that. But other than that, we're looking at $400,000. This is what it's going to cost us to do nothing, because that piece of land will sit there for another 25 years, and it'll still be a piece of lawn that the city has to mow, costs $3,000 a month to mow it, and it's just going to go on because the people we made the deal with are owed their taxes that they haven't got, and they're not going to forgive that. They're going to want their money. So just think about that, and I trust you. If this goes to November, there's going to be an education plan. Everybody in this city is going to know the truth about how this went around. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councilmember Luna, do you have any additional comments or questions?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. It is quite disturbing to see what people are being told. And unfortunately, some of us know the real history of the 400 block, knew the people that were there. And I, for one, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I worked for the city for 30 years. I retired from the city finance department. I was the only one that used to open up the city hall for Leon Panetta, the congressman at that time, and all the federal agencies that came in here in this room. And every agency said, we will rebuild Hollister. We will rebuild downtown. And that was our downtown. And so I'm hoping that the residents of the city, new residents, will understand what this community and the city went through back in that year. But I also, as many of you tonight have said, you know, everybody has a right to the referendum. Anybody that signed that referendum, think about what you signed. Because if you signed that referendum or that petition in front of any store in the city of Hollister, thinking that you were signing against housing development, that wasn't true. You were signing to put this as a referendum on the ballot about the 400 block that has been sitting there for 28 years. Think again for anybody that witnessed those petitions. If you witnessed and you wrote your name there, under that name, it says you are liable. So it's almost like taking an oath of office and saying, I collected these signatures and I'm submitting these signatures as proof that they're going to qualify to put that referendum on the ballot so other people can vote on what I thought and what I signed. It's not a joke. It's for reals. So I want people to think about that, because now we're at this point that we have to make a decision. And it's taking time, and it's taking a lot of time, where now we move on. And whatever it comes out to, and whatever decision is made by the voters of the city, then that's something that everybody has to live by. So my commentary was just because I want people to think, have a clear conscience that when you signed to put that referendum on the ballot. And now we are at a point where we're even working with the Attorney General of the state of California, and we're holding off to see what that decision and opinion will be. So we move on, and we move on. But think about what you all did to get to this point in time, because it wasn't just the city council. We are sitting here now to move on with the will of the people. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Gillio? I'm going to try to keep my comments as brief as possible because we spoke on this 2 weeks ago, almost verbatim what's coming up again tonight. I do want to talk about a few things. Fiscal impact I want to talk about. Councilmember Friend mentioned the $400,000, $390,000 that we would essentially need to purchase that property to pay back all of our partners that also own that property along with us and expect a share of the property tax. One thing that wasn't mentioned was the actual property tax that will be generated by this project at a conservative, very conservative rate of a $10 million valuation on the property and assessment on the property. You're looking at over a 20-year period. We did the calculations informally, and the staff is going to get that for us soon, I think, is the, it's about $1.4 million to the school district over that 20-year period. So that's a huge dollar loss. And that's not only the property tax we're talking about. This thing's also going to generate sales tax and bring more people to the downtown, and it's going to enliven our downtown. And we're not, let's not even talk about the sales tax. That's a little bit nebulous and hard to track. But just in property tax alone, just for the school district, $1.6 million. And then you have everybody else that gets their share of the property tax. That if this thing stays a grass lot and doesn't get improved to that $10 million value, you're looking at, property tax on a $400,000 lot. It's about the same as a residential house that was bought 4 or 5 years ago in Hollister. So what is that, $4 or $5 grand a year total? So it's a huge deal, and I think we need to really think about that. One of the things that was very telling last time is we had a community member speak. We had the community member step up and say that, you know what, I would support this project if it was mixed use, essentially. She didn't use those words. She said if it was residential on the top and it was commercial on the bottom. You guys are building condos or apartments down there. That's not what you should be building. You should listen to the community, and this is what people want. Well, that is the project. And that's the frustrating thing for me, is that I believe that our several members of our community, many, were deceived when they signed this form, this referendum form. They had something pushed in front of them. I personally had somebody try to get my wife to sign something. My wife told me the story. It was complete. They told her they were building $750,000 condos at the corner of San Benito and 4th Street. And they were standing outside of Safeway passing off that information, and people were signing away. But that's not the scope of the project. So I think what we need to do as a city, as a council, as a community, the Community Foundation, the Del Curto, everybody who's involved in this project, we need to get the information out. You know, we have 1,600 people who signed this referendum, and they expect a choice to be made. They expect to be able to have a vote, and that's where we're headed now. But we need to get that education out there, and everybody needs to know the full scope of the project. That's the bottom line. I don't think people knew the full scope of the project, and I think if they did, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation today. So with that being said, the last thing I wanted to point out is Mr. Maroney, First Amendment, exactly the right to redress your government. That's exactly where we're at now. We need to think of the least expensive way to deal with this. That's going to be in November of 2018. And I'm telling you right now, if the Attorney General comes back and says that this is an illegal administrative act that cannot be referended or voted on, I will be the one up here saying that we need to cancel everything that we started and go back to the original agreement that we had. So everybody needs to be very clear on that now. And I think everybody up here feels the same way. I won't speak for everybody else. That if the Attorney General says that this is not something that should have been referended, that we're back to where the project was, and that's just the way it's going to be because that's the law. I'm a black and white person. I'm going to follow the law, and I'm going to follow the dollars, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Interim City Clerk Christine Black for all of her work on this and her professionalism, because we're learning as we go in this process. This isn't something that's happening every year, so it's been, and City Attorney Soren Diaz as well. It's been tough. We're learning as we go. I try to be pragmatic in my decisions, and I was just trying to think of a kind of a way to relate it to normal life. When I go to Costco and I go to eat at the little food place there, they only have a few options. I might want something different, like a big bowl of cioppino or something, but they don't serve that. So I usually get a slice of combo pizza. That's kind of what we're in here. These are not the favorite options I think that most of us want, but I think that the best option for me, at least, the combo slice, is taking it to the election in 2018 in November. We have to. We need to follow the election code like we do everything else. There's no reason to kind of thumb our nose at the election code, and the voters have made it clear that they want this on the ballot. So I think we should do that. And I want to minimize the amount of money we spend on it. I think that it's going to cost us even more than we really know when you factor in the city attorney's time and the rest of the city staff's time who've been working on this for, well, if you just look at opportunity costs, we're probably about 16 months into this now. So it's not a little amount of money. But yeah, my favorite opinion or favorite option on this is 246. So if there's no other comments or questions, I'll open it up to a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve a resolution 2017-246, which, to be specific, in case I have the number wrong, is to push the referendum to the November 2018 election.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Passes 3-1.
Are we back to Haley?
Okay, we're going to move to item F3.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I need to recuse myself from items number 3 and number 4 because I recused myself from the original decision in which I had a conflict of interest with one of the proposed sites. Okay?
Mr. Mayor, I also will be recusing myself for the same items as discussed earlier. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, for the previously announced same reasons, I will also be recusing myself.
I'm going to recuse myself and go home and go to sleep. All right.
Good evening again.
Thank you.
At its regular council meeting of September 5th, the City Council directed staff to place Haven Dispensary on the October 2nd, 2017 agenda for reconsideration in the final stage of the approval process for medical cannabis dispensary. Staff recommends that the City Council receive the staff report, and if it is the desire of the City Council to adopt the resolution number 2017-249, the City Council is providing direction to staff to prepare a conditional cannabis use permit development agreement for Haven Dispensary. And the applicant is here. I'm not sure if he would like to speak, but that is all I have.
Thank you. Like to speak?
Honorable Mayor, council members, I have had the city clerk pass out a letter from my attorney, Lance Rogers, and for my public comment, I'm just going to read it. It's not too long here. So regarding concerns, attorney conflict of interest, and improper recusal advice, dear City Council members and Mr. Diaz, City Attorney, for those of you who aren't familiar, as you are aware, I represent Haven Dispensary, a medical cannabis facility applicant. This letter is to address our concern that, notwithstanding the ongoing legal conflict that resulted in Mr. Diaz's recusal, he offered legal advice regarding recusals to City Council members. We disagree with some of that advice and request that the application review process be stayed until the City Council can obtain legal advice from a neutral and unbiased outside attorney. Even after Mr. Diaz publicly recused himself from the medical dispensary application process, he provided advice to council members Gillio and Clower regarding their recusals. Attached to this letter are the following public records demonstrating that Mr. Diaz's firm, LNG LLP, has attorneys who represent medical cannabis applicants involved in the permit process. Exhibit A is application paperwork showing LNG attorney Aaron Johnson representing Monterey Bay Alternative Medicine. Exhibit B is a letter from attorney Lance Rogers to city attorney requesting appropriate process be followed. Exhibit C, letters exchanged between Rogers and Diaz regarding conflicts of interest. And Exhibit D, time-stamped partial transcripts of the August 14th, 2017 City Council meeting where at least two applicants state representation by LNG LLP. From the information available in the public record, we do not believe it is necessary for Councilman Clower to recuse himself from voting on dispensary applications. The advice given to Councilmember Gillio may also require reconsideration. City Attorney Diaz should not have provided advice on recusals in the first place due to his association with LNG, which has cannabis clients active in the process. We hope that you take this into consideration as the permitting matter continues and stay a review of the applications until you have a time to consider these matters under the advice of neutral third-party counsel. Thank you for your time.
Any questions from council? Any speaker cards? This item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Kenneth Johnson.
It's not here.
Taylor Rodriguez.
Taylor.
Okay. Then no, Mr. Mayor, there are no other
Okay.
speakers.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion from council? There is no motion, so this item dies for lack of a motion. We'll move to item F4.
Thank you. This item is for another resolution. At its regular City Council meeting of September 5th, 2017, the City Council directed staff to agendize Monterey Bay Alternative Medicine for reconsideration of the final stage of the approval process for the medical cannabis dispensary. Monterey Bay Dispensary just a little bit of background. They submitted an application for a dispensary, and it would be located at 773 San Felipe Road. Staff recommends that the City Council receive the staff report, and if it's the desire of the City Council, is to adopt resolution number 2017-250. This resolution would provide staff direction to prepare a CUP DA for Monterey Bay Medical Cannabis Dispensary. I believe the applicant has a presentation prepared for you guys.
Okay.
Christine, actually, you can, I don't think we even need to do that if you'd like. It's all right. Yeah.
I can do it for you.
That's okay. The poor council has been here for quite a while this evening. I can make this fairly straightforward. Honorable Mayor, members of the council, Gary Coates here on behalf of Monterey Bay Alternative Medicine. I wanted to kind of restate one of the things that was a challenge that was given to us by the council at the last meeting, and it dealt with the distance that we needed to determine between our proposed use and the adjacent residential uses. Since that point, we've actually gone out and had that distance verified so that we could find out, and found on our property that we can conform to the 600-foot separation that was mentioned by the mayor at that meeting. So we come to you this evening letting you know that we have been able to secure the necessary distance to, on our property, the same piece of property, 773, to accomplish the 600-foot separation from any adjacent residential. In addition to that, we have just secured the rights to the property that is to the north of us, the rights of the use of the last building, which is on the corner of San Felipe and McCloskey. If you're familiar, there's a little building on the corner. And in the city of Delray Oaks, where AMBAM is located and where they have been operating for the last 3 years, we have been in a cooperative effort with the police department in the city of Delray Oaks. They're doing a cooperative program with them by providing space adjacent to our dispensary there for the police substation facility to be located. We have not had a chance to talk to the police chief, so this is really brand new coming today, but we wanted to just offer as a consideration, and we'd be willing to meet with the city representatives as well as the police chief to make that same offer on this building adjacent to us, to provide a portion of that building to the PD for a substation if that was their desire, at no cost to them, to give to the community that additional coverage within that area and provide that opportunity. So we just wanted to make that as an offer to the council and to the police department for consideration that we can discuss at a later time. But having just acquired the rights to that building, we now can make that offer, which we could not do previously. The AMBAM also, I think, as you know, as we mentioned, last year was selected as the Small Business of the Year Award in Monterey County by the Monterey County Business Council. And this year, again, we'll be in running for that award, showing that their performance speaks for themselves and how they have been providing the services to the community in the Monterey Peninsula, and how they would now do that over in this area as well, in the Hollister community area in San Benito County. So we are very excited of the opportunity to come into the community, provide this service, be a member of the community, provide local opportunities first, and other important advantages to the community, and hopefully would be considered for a issuance of the second dispensary permit. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'll be happy to answer questions. I have representatives from the Monterey Bay Alternative Medicine here this evening, should you have any questions for them.
Thank you. Is there any questions from council? No?
No.
Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor. Gary Coates? That was you. Okay, gotcha. Taylor Rodriguez?
Honorable Mayor, council members, I just want to state for the record that Monterey Bay Alternative's proposed location at 773 San Felipe Road in Hollister is actually not outside of a 600-foot radius from residential properties. Also, if MBAM is proposing a change or amendment to their application, I'm asking that that opportunity also be provided to other applicants who would like the chance to change their location if that is the wishes of the council. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Elias Salinas.
Good evening. Sorry, I'm getting a little tired. So there actually is, or there are residents at 731 San Felipe Road, which is right adjacent to the property that MBAM is speaking for. One of my concerns is that, and I appreciate them trying to say that they would like to offer the police department some type of a substation when the police station is actually not that far from the location anyway. If the city council is not aware of, the city manager for the city of Delray Oaks was arrested a week ago on Friday, who was a member of the board of directors and as well as a cannabis consultant and a board of directors for MBAM. The chief of police had to resign. Unless he was fired, I can't remember right now. I'm so tired. Also, there was a planning commissioner for the city of Delray Oaks. So there's been some controversy with them. I personally like the Blodgetts, but the way business has been done in the city of Delray Oaks, I really, really don't want something like this coming into the city of Hollister. I would request that the city council not make a decision on allowing the second permit today and put it into a stay until something is maybe with regards to the fact that I think that there is a conflict of interest because they have used LNG as their attorneys. Their name is not on the background, but there is some background information that I am aware of that they do communicate with the LNG and they are using them to help them out with the application process. So I think that things like that should be considered. These are things that are going on in the background that people don't know about, and I happen to be very fortunate that I know a lot of things that happen in the background. The investigation with regards to the arrest of the city manager for the city of Delray Oaks is actually still ongoing, and there may be possibly, I was told, hypothetically, a federal investigation going on with regards to that.
This is not, I don't know what happened with the city manager, and I don't know if it pertains to their business or not, so I'd rather just hear facts about their location here. Because that's where
I appreciate you saying that, and I wish that you would have said something when someone was actually trying to slander and libel one of our city councilmen. I would like you to speak up on behalf of them as well.
We do. He stopped before he went any further.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I think if you could just hold off on making any kind of a decision, and I think that maybe Tyler would be able to, and we have a discussion where Tyler might be able to find another location that would be amiable to the city council. Would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, is there any questions from council? Comments? Can we get the clarification about the 600 foot?
Yeah, the 600 foot sensitive uses, and if you want to explain it or interrupt me if I'm wrong. I think what some folks are getting confused about is whether it's a legal non-conforming use or a land use by right. So I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the houses that are within the vicinity of this particular property on San Felipe, the residents in there are what we would consider a legal non-conforming use, because we had changed the zoning districts out there about 12 years ago, 15 years ago now. So that's sort of the answer to that particular question. Right? Okay.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions from council? Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept this application.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We did item F5. We're going to move to item F6.
You did 5.
Yes.
You did 5 already.
Yes, so we're moving to F6. Is it F or yes? Oh.
God, he sounds like he's tearing the place apart. God, I hope the next one's quick. I'm hungry. I'm starving.
That's what the canters are for. All right.
Good evening, Mayor Velasquez, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Paul Ravella here. I'm here on behalf of the city of Hollister. Item number F6. Before you is an amendment to the Nash Road Regional Park Project Interagency Cooperation Agreement. Essentially, everything you need to know is in the staff report. Ultimately, the main changes that are being requested by the county and the high school district apply to funding of the construction of the bypass road. And the breakdown of costs. The San Benito High School District has agreed to foot some of the bill. Apparently, the initial bids came in a little bit higher than the county expected. And so those two parties have negotiated an agreement to split the cost of construction. There are some changes to the project regarding the parking lot for the regional park, and some changes to the standards for the road and some traffic control devices at San Benito and Nash Road. Ultimately, though, the changes being requested don't really have much of an effect on the city of Hollister as far as your obligations under the contract. I do want to let you know the county approved this amendment September 12th at their hearing or at their meeting, and the high school district approved this amendment September 26th, 2017. There's no fiscal impact to the city. The actual road is going to be on property owned by the high school district, and it's going to be offered for dedication. The county is in charge of all the construction, maintenance, and repairs. We've already informed the county and the district that if it's not constructed to city standards, the city will not be accepting it. And so there's really no fiscal impact to the city at this time.
Okay.
I am available if you have any questions, but what's before you is a recommendation that the city approve the amendment to the interagency cooperation agreement.
All right. Is there any question, Councilmember Friend?
Just a quick question.
Yes.
The bypass road, I'm glad to hear that it's going to be up to the city standards. It's not in the city limits, right?
No.
Even though it's
Not currently.
close.
Yes. Part of it
is
in the city limits, and from the last meeting I was at the district, they're hoping to actually annex more of the school district site into the city so that there's only one law enforcement agency that would be responding to. Because right now, depending on where you're at on the south side of campus, either it would be sheriff's jurisdiction or PD jurisdiction.
Correct. Broken down along Nash Road.
Okay. But as long as the road is going to conform to the city's...
And let's make sure that, Councilman Friend, what we've basically said, unless the road is constructed to city standards, we were not interested in accepting that dedication. I don't necessarily believe that the intent is to develop that road to city standards.
Correct.
In fact, I'm pretty sure they're not. Because we require a certain size right-of-way. We require curb, gutter, and sidewalk. That does not happen to be a part of this project.
Yeah. So it's not going to be to city standards, but we're also not going to have to maintain it or improve it.
Correct.
So if I can ask, who's going to maintain it, the county or the school district?
County will be solely responsible for it.
Are they?
And that's in the contract That's in the version of the contract that you guys have already agreed to.
So they're going to maintain at the standards they currently maintain their roads? I'm a little concerned about where we're going with this.
They are solely responsible for the maintenance and repair of the bypass road under the interagency cooperation agreement as it sits today. This amendment doesn't affect that.
All right. Do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speaker cards, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to entertain a motion.
There's a motion.
Motion that we approve and adopt Resolution 2017-252.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Move to reports. G1, reports from city council members regarding their committees. Councilmember Luna.
I have no report.
Councilmember Friend.
I have no report.
Vice Mayor Clower.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Gilio.
Nothing to report.
I have nothing to report either. Go to item G2, informational reports from city council. Councilmember Luna.
Yeah, I just want to report that I met with REACH of San Benito County, and they wanted to show me the plan that they have in place for the trail on, by the river. And so it was interesting just to see what they had to present, and I'm sure they're going to be bringing it forward. And that was the only meeting I had.
Thank you. Councilmember Friend.
No.
Vice Mayor Clower.
Yes, I toured the homeless shelter, which is currently under construction. Toured that today. And it was actually pretty neat. There's a lot going on there. The first phase, I think, is somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 square feet. It includes a kind of a bunk room for the men and a bunk room for the women, a community room, a check-in, and everything. So it was good to hear about the services that are planned to be held there, and the times, and some of the rules that they're thinking about putting in place. And they already went out to RFP for service provider. So that was interesting. They're expecting the whole first phase of the project to be done. I think December 1st was their target date. But it was interesting because it's only going to serve a certain population. So there's no families that can actually go there. So it's not a complete solution, but it's definitely a big first step to providing some of those in need with housing, at least on an emergency basis. And then eventually they're hoping to do some single room occupancy type units that are on the same site for transitional housing, which is going to be really important. So hopefully they'll be able to get that going in the next year and a half, and maybe it'll serve as some sort of pilot project for a bigger project for transitional housing, just because it's so important. I think most people can maybe get out of the rain for one day, but actually finding the money to come up with a deposit and first month's rent and sometimes last month's rent on a place just isn't feasible for a lot of people. So it'd be good to see us move that direction as a community.
Councilmember Gilio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two things I'd like to talk about. On last week, I met with Assemblymember Caballero. She was very generous with her time, and we spoke about a few things, but we spoke about the Highway 156 widening project, and two items in specifically. We talked about the intersection of Union and the new 4-lane road there, and Assemblymember Caballero has agreed that she will do her best to lobby without slowing down the process improvements to that intersection as well. And throughout that conversation, we talked about, and she requested that the city of Hollister support and write a letter to Caltrans asking them to begin construction prior to 2019 on the 4-lane addition to Highway 156 between the Alameda and Union Road. And I would like possibly to get just a headshake consensus of the council to see if staff can draft that letter. And then we're also going to try to work with the county to draft the same letter. And then she would also, Assemblymember Caballero would also like to try to help us get that construction started in mid to late 2018, if at all possible. That's one item. And then the second item, I know it's a little early, but I would like to adjourn in the memory of the victims and family that suffered in the Las Vegas tragedy from yesterday. There were several families that are impacted here locally. And as a matter of fact, somebody was in the gallery tonight that didn't lose a family member but had a family member that was at the event and had to live through that horrific scene.
Okay. Just wanted to state that I also visit the homeless shelter. It's great progress to know where we are today, where we were 3 years ago. It's not the end all, but it's a great first step. A lot of new programs are coming towards that to help our issues here. I think with the upcoming phases where the program is going to be implemented, we're going to see some changes. But now that we're going to have the shelter open, we're going to have to look at how we're going to deal with some of the other issues with the homeless population within the city and the county. So I'm pleased that it will be open year-round starting December 1st. And I hope all of you have a chance to go tour the shelter.
Yeah, I'm going Friday.
You're going Friday? Good. Excellent.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, I failed to mention that I was also there.
Oh,
I
excellent.
took a tour.
Good. All right. City Manager?
I have nothing to report tonight.
City Attorney?
I've got one matter, which is going to be sort of going along with the issues pertaining to the homeless. We're going to have a first reading of a shopping cart ordinance that's going to prohibit the possession of shopping carts that are stolen in public parks and other locations. So that first reading will be at the next regular meeting for the City Council's entertainment. Thank you.
I've also, if you can, for a future conversation, I've noticed a few more using the benches to sleep on overnight, and I drive around and wake them up at 5 in the morning, let them know it's not okay. But we have to look at some of those other issues that are happening. Chief?
Nothing.
Thank you. City Clerk?
Received I have nothing to
Okay. G3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The item before you is for staff to receive some direction as it relates to a public information officer and kind of public relations. Most cities of our size and larger, is relatively common to have a public information officer to deal with newsy items as they arise. Public relations is something also that have become more of a desire in communities of our size, making sure that information, good or bad, is always out and available. As you are aware, the council is aware that social media plays a huge role in city government these days, up and down the state of California. We, the city of Hollister, have not had a quote-unquote public information officer. We have PIOs in our individual departments. Christine and I have gone through some training, and I will readily admit I stink at it. So, but the item before you is because council members have requested some discussion about whether or not this is a direction they want to go. The question to you and for me, as from a direction perspective, is if you'd like to have actually the staff go out and do a recruitment and create a job description for a public relations PIO / public relations officer, or send out RFPs to qualified firms that would do the same thing. I have had a conversation with Chief Westrick, and one of the things that he told me recently is that a lot of times communities are hiring either reporters or former reporters to do these types of things that are used to being on one side of the camera. They're certainly okay on the other side, and they do a really good job of getting news out, and it's not necessarily that difficult for staff to get them that information, and they can make a story out of it. So I thought that was a very interesting sort of way to approach this as well. So that's one advantage for going to sort of an employee of the city of Hollister. The other conversations that we've had is about sort of where what department that they thought that I would like to have them in. I asked Dave. Dave doesn't want them. I asked Fire. I don't think Fire wants them, so it'll look like it'll be in the city manager's office or the city hall's office. And I don't mean it like they don't want them. That's not what I meant. It probably lends itself easier to be here in a central location to do all of it. So I'm just seeking direction from the council about what your thoughts are in a public forum, so that we can begin moving forward or towards having this or not.
Let me, I want to go back 4 years ago, I believe it was 4 years ago, we as a council agreed to allocate $20,000 a year to make sure we're getting the word out through mailers or different ways. I cannot support hiring a person full-time as a public information officer. It's a lot of money. Times have changed, though, in those 4 years. There are firms, as you mentioned, that do promote on social media. It's very basic, very simple. They know what they're doing. You give them the information, and they're putting it out there. I just don't want to get in a situation where we're going to end up hiring somebody because it's going to cost a lot more money than $20,000. I've said for several years we need to bring back the dollars to do this right. And it is tricky to get out there and get the information out there correctly. But I think if we can move back to the allocating $20,000, figure out how we do it, find a firm to do it on social media. The only concern I have with that is there are a lot of people that don't use social media. And I found that to be the case. I'm active on social media myself, and I'll run into people that have no clue about anything going on in the city because they do not have Facebook or anything else. So it's a larger percentage than I would have thought. So I think a mix of a mailer here and there, and we talked about putting information in the bills other than just the basic information will help get us to the point we need to be, because we do need to get the information out. Councilmember Luna?
Well, what I'd like to say is I'm one of the council members that really would like to push for this, because I think the city of Hollister is long overdue in having a public information officer. It can be not an officer, but a firm that can come in that is probably does not know the departments, but can get the information from the departments and put together that media release so that everybody can actually read what everybody is doing. I think social media is just something that people promote themselves, and I can't imagine the city not being promoted as a whole. And I really believe within a firm, they will be reporting exactly what the city council is doing. And I know I had somebody mention to me the other day, you guys don't go on Facebook and respond. You guys should respond because you're looking like a very weak council. Well, some of us are not going to respond on Facebook, and we're not going to comment. But I really feel that having a firm to actually put out the information is going to help the city. It's not going to help the city council, but it's going to help the city itself. And I really am a believer. I've seen other cities, and I know quite a few firms that do this, and I really believe that it's long overdue for the city of Hollister.
Okay, Councilmember Gulio.
I agree, and I was also one of the persons asking for a press information officer. I have a slightly different take on it. I'd like to give you some experience on this. So I don't disagree that there are firms out there that will do a job. What I can tell you is I was a press information officer for, I'll go on the low end, probably around 5 years, probably a little bit longer than that. And you really need to be a member of the team, and you have to be here on a day-to-day basis. The police chief's recommendation of having a reporter, it's an amazing idea. There's a program that was started by the city of Oxnard called Straight to You. And what it is an ex-reporter from the Los Angeles area started a project, and this reporter will go out to the scene of public safety incidents. They'll go to city meetings and literally have a camera. And he'll stand in front of the camera and he'll report just like a news reporter. And that'll go on all the social media accounts. It'll go on the city's website, Nixle. And what I've seen, because I've also seen the firm side of it, is it's very difficult for a firm to be engaged and know what's happening day to day in the city. It is an investment in the city, and I can tell you that this is going to bleed over to economic development. You're going to have a person that's there to greet companies and provide information to businesses about why our area is so important to be here, to help with the chief's job with press releases. Now, obviously, the chief's going to have to deal with critical press releases on their own, homicides, investigations, that sort of thing. But on a day-to-day basis, the fire, PD, council, city management, and as far as where it should report to, I've seen this be very effective. I believe it needs to report directly to the city manager, and the city manager has to have that daily debrief and conversation with this person so that the message is appropriate. And as far as social media, you can take a look at several firms, and I don't want to name any firms, but a lot of firms will tell you, and they've come to my business. I get probably 3 or 4 emails a month saying, hey, we'll handle your social media account for you. But I look at the accounts that they're handling, and a lot of times what they'll do is they'll post a very non-engaging, non-specific comment every 3 or 4 days or however you pay them, but they don't respond to the comments. They don't get involved. And we really need somebody that's involved in the process, and it's going to cost you money. It's going to. That's the bottom line. But if you're going to do it, I believe that's the way to do it and to do it right. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Clower.
I'll preface my comments with I haven't thought about this that much, so these are just kind of ideas straight off the top of my head. But I think when you think about a PIO, there's probably 2 different parts of it. One is branding, and the other is somebody who's going to be there when things go wrong, emergency response that can actually get information out. I think if we hire a firm, your branding is probably going to be okay, but having somebody who is part of the team, who knows exactly what's going on because they've been living it for the last few months or years would be very crucial. I don't want to steer the conversation a little bit, but I think that if we did go to think about creating a position and description, and I think this is a great opportunity to look at the county liaison idea that I brought up, or the liaison to all of the different jurisdictions, because we still have a ton of things that balls get dropped, things take months longer than they should because we don't have somebody who knows everything. We don't have a position who lives the agreements, lives the discussions, lives the negotiations. When I sit in on some of the ad hoc committees that I'm on, unfortunately, I'm the one from the city who is that person, and I'm not sure that that's the best way to do it, because I don't meet with the city manager or the department heads every week and go over all the things that are brewing. We need somebody who knows exactly what's going on. They should be standing up there when we have really important agreements that are coming up, and I think that this type of position, the PIO, is something that they could do both, because they're only going to be that much better at the position of PIO because they're going to know everything that's going on. They're not making decisions, but they can relay the information, and then that's going to help us make better decisions. Things take a long time in government because the follow-up's not always there. If you have somebody that you can hold accountable for negotiations and discussions, then we know the person that we have to talk to. And the PIO side, I think it's something that we've struggled with for the entire time I've been on the council, is just getting the correct information out. Even as something as simple as a water line break, you got to drive by it to know what's happening most of the time, or if there's a fire. If we had somebody like that was their job, it would be a lot better situation, and probably I think it would help the community overall immensely.
Councilmember Frank? Yeah,
and I'm going to be honest too. I haven't thought a lot about this, but I think I would like to see exactly what that would cost. What is that position, and what are we talking about? What's the description? Because the more I think about it, like the other day, we had a power outage in town, and PG&E sent an email to the council and told us what happened. But if I didn't call people and say, hey, is your power out, they're not going to know what's going on. And I think maybe little incidents like that, and it could be the fire at Ridgemark. It could be little stuff like that. It's just a central spot for people to call. And maybe that's what instead of social media, it's a publicized number that says, what the hell's going on over on Santa Ana Road? Oh, we had a gas line leak. And just explain that, and that's all people are looking for is enough. And then it could evolve into somebody who's out there promoting the city. I don't know, but I'd like to see what that would cost. Either hiring a firm or hiring a full-time.
I got to say, I just absolutely cannot support hiring a full-time person to post information online. That's just let's be honest. We know what's going to happen. 5 o'clock's going to come around. The event's going to happen at 6 or 7, and they're going to say, "I'm off the clock. Sorry, I'm not posting unless I get paid overtime." There's ways to do this. As I said, a news release or different things we talked about originally, up to $20,000. We can go past that, forget it. This will become a $150,000 bill in no time, and then we're going to have, it's not going to be good. And we just don't need to keep creating new positions, I think.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment?
One of the things we know about government is that we're not very efficient and never will be. That's just the way government is. You bring in outside firms that do this type of work, and they can do a good job with it. And that's just really coming down to departments passing along information. They can post those things, and we can get that information out. But hiring a full-time person to do this would just be an incredible waste of dollars. And we've been doing good financially, making progress. I would hate to see us start sliding back on by spending more money to hire more people. Councilmember Gilliam?
Thank you. I wanted to ask Chief Westrick if you had any thoughts on this. You're very active on, actually, I would say a pioneer on social media as well as public information in the chief realm. You may be humble, but your peers statewide and nationally look to you for leadership on this. I was wondering if you can give us your opinion.
Well, I think information is the key, and I think all the council members have the same concern about getting the correct information out. And if you had a person, whether it be a firm or a PIO itself, that was a clearinghouse for this information, and I suggested going to the city manager because the city attorney's right there, and they can go through that filter as well. I think what you're going to see is that both on the business side, we're trying to attract different places, firms to come here to the city of Hollister. We'll have the correct information, and also the public itself will appreciate that information. There's so many things like we were talking earlier that fall through the cracks, like fires and outages and things that occur on the road that don't get reported to me. And I try to do as much as I possibly can, but I can't be up 24/7. I think it'd be very helpful, actually. And in this day and age, with a smartphone, you can do pretty much everything, whether it be go to a meeting, a public meeting, and report out to the city manager what that person saw at the public meeting, and even give a briefing either via the website or do a hard copy to the local papers as well.
Thank you, Chief. And one last comment, Councilmember Clower, you reminded me that I think that the proposal that you mentioned, did you call it the county liaison? I think that's a crucial task that I think should be assigned to the PIO. They should be going to COG, intergovernmental, fire committee. It should be going to all these committees and reporting back. I'll give you an example. I'm on COG, and I have to tell you that I forgot to give you guys all an update. Both the mayor and I are both on COG, and we didn't provide you with an update. And that's not fair to our council members that didn't get that update, because that's an important committee to get that update. So I guess what I would like to do is I would like to see if there's at least a head nod consensus enough to have the city manager study the cost of both options of a staff person and also as a firm that would represent us as a third party, and see if there's at least 3 of us that are interested in studying the cost of that.
I think as far as a firm, we probably have to at least describe what we'd be expecting in order to get a fair price range. Because I just think that a firm will be able to give you that branding, that consistent posting, the consistent terms that you want to have heard. but you're not necessarily going to get somebody who's going to jump out of bed when there's a big fire and start working. I apologize, but I disagree. We have staff who don't get paid hourly, and they're on site all the time when there's bad events and when they need to be. So I think if you find the right person, you'll get value. But it's something that has to start from the very beginning on how you actually describe the position. And then we haven't had this position forever. So if we've got to go a little while before we find somebody that we're comfortable with, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Do we have any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Victor Morone again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I was asking Marty because he seems to know these things. It was a little unclear whether you're going to let the public speak on this because you were sort of talking, are we going to have this in the future? So thank you for letting me speak. I'm very familiar with this issue. I'm a little surprised, though, not one of you mentioned any qualities that you'd like to see in this firm or individual. But I think, given our community, bilingualism is extremely important, and being able to communicate in two languages, especially in emergency situations, is absolutely essential. I'm a little surprised that none of you put that out there, but I think that is if you decide to pursue this, is something you need to do. I'm all about education, and I think public information is a good thing, but it's extremely expensive. In the neighboring Pajaro Valley Unified School District, they just voted to, after much debate and everything, to fund a position. It was $140,000 for a public information officer. So maybe that answers Councilman Friend's issue a little bit there. Super expensive if you have someone embedded that's sort of this person that's always there ready to do their thing. The other thing about this that I think, and this is more of I've watched this in other places, but it's a bit of a slippery slope when you have someone providing information. One person's information could be someone else's political statement of some kind. So you really have to ratchet this down and make sure it truly is objective information and not some sort of advocacy for other people down the road. And I'm not quite sure how you'd work that, but it is a bit of a slippery slope on that. And then my last advice, if you do pursue this, is probably start slow. I like what Carson said at the end. If it takes a while to kind of figure it out, that's probably a really good idea, because if you haven't had it before, you're not going to miss it necessarily. But getting that right fit, making sure they're bilingual so they can reach the entire community, and making sure it's not really expensive initially, and the fact that they're not engaging in some sort of political debate or weighing in on things or whatever, but they're just providing, as the guy in Dragnet was to say, just the facts, ma'am. That's what you want to do. So thank you very much.
I'll make it brief because it's Italy. Just the facts, ma'am. Marty Richmond, I am not Sergeant Friday. Do you remember the badge number? Everybody remember the badge number?
714.
714. You got it. The winner. I have no direct experience, but I bet my bottom dollar that $140,000 won't buy you an effective PIO for a city, because a city operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you got to have somebody around all night long, whereas the school district, I don't think, operates like that. So I do think it's an enormous amount of money. I think you ought to agendize, rather than agendize whether to get a PIO, I think you ought to agendize how to share information with the public. That may wind up to be a PIO, because that may be the best answer. But I think the issue is what we want to do, not how to do it. First thing. I think providing information actually is part of every department's job. Now, who is the final person who broadcasts that? Maybe it depends on what the information is. Maybe on certain circumstances it's the chief. Other circumstances, it's the fire chief. Certain things about the water mains and so forth might be the city manager or someone under the auspices of the city manager. But we ought to at least put a flow, because even if you had a PIO, you're going to need a flow. You're going to have to say, how does the information get from the engineering department to the PIO? Because the PIO cannot be in an intergovernmental meeting and be in the engineering department at the same time, telephones or not. Okay, can't do it. So I think what you ought to do is set up the process, whether you hire a PIO or not, to start with. Set the process up of how the information is going to flow. Who's responsible? What information do we want? And who's responsible for providing it? What's the flow to the information? Who's it go to? And at some point in time, who releases it and how? I think the idea of having a very good idea about having bilingual for two reasons. One reason is the obvious one. We have a lot of people who need the second language. And the second one is it would automatically disqualify me as a former reporter. And since I only speak English and Brooklynese, I would be out of the running. But I do think that's the most important thing, because even while you're debating on how to get a PIO, something could happen tomorrow, or it could happen tonight, or it can and it'll always happen at the worst time, on the worst day. That I guarantee. So you've got to put something in place immediately, whether you decide to have a PIO or not, and then you can decide, well, looking at all this information flow and how it works, should we have a PIO? Thank you for your time. I'm sorry I'm so.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to respond to something that was brought up. I have had conversations with our city manager, and of course, bilingual was at the top of the conversation. You realize that, because even currently, with the earthquake in Mexico, I was contacted by the local television stations to find out how they can connect to Mexico City, and thank God I have government contacts that I contacted immediately together, so they can find out more, so they could bring it out to the public, and know that, this is the number you call for your relatives. So it's so important. And yes, when it comes down to bilingual, I'm on top of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Heidi behind the podium. I think you can take your time, but it is very important that this is a really important era that we're in. Everything is immediate information out there. People are putting false information. I kind of echo what Vic said earlier with regards to making sure that it's the facts, it's information. It's really important. People hear sirens and they start, just making up stories if they only have a little bit of the information. Chief Westrick is a pioneer, like Councilman Gilio said. He's out there giving information. He puts itself out there. I think that some of the city councilmen are doing the same thing as well. I know the mayor's very well has his Sundays. I think Sundays is when he's been doing it. So I think from my journaling classes, I remember it's a who, what, where, when, and why, right? The most important things. Also considering we have college students that are attending classes here locally from Gavilan or Hartnell. I really am a proponent of getting interns, and that is a great way to save money. You can still have somebody on staff. I know the mayor's concerned about something happening after hours and overtime, but I think that if we can get something, you guys can figure out where you can have certain people during certain hours of the day and the night. With using the interns would be a great way to go with being able to save money and still getting the information out there. When it's an emergency, there's always somebody in the head of the department that's out there anyway, and that's the information that how it can go down to one of the interns or whomever is chosen for the position. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other comments, questions? I think, as I've said, if we can go back to the $20,000 area and work towards this goal of getting information out, there's so many new ways to do it now, and I think, again, what's the information going out? The department heads, the rec center, or there's ways to do this that are pretty simple. The idea of having somebody ready to do a news release at all times, just doesn't make a lot of financial sense. So you want to have a longer conversation about it at another meeting where we can talk about what the goal is here?
Can we ask you guys to study the cost for us, Mr. Rivera, please? Thank you very much.
All right. HIJK, there's no business.
Move for adjournment.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.